podcast that we haven't named yet. I'm Steve.
And my name is David.
And today we are going to talk about albums because we want to do a podcast and that seemed easy.
It is something that we can talk out of our ass about.
Yes. So today we are going to look at some albums by a band called Black Sabbath. David, how familiar are you with Black Sabbath?
I am mainly familiar with their first 5 or so records, about through, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Then I kind of fall off.
Now, they are coming out with a box set in a few weeks called Anno Domini. I think it's called. It's one of the songs that's on their TYR album, and it's going to have 4 albums that they put on the IRS label. And I happen to own 2 of those on vinyl. I actually purchased all these back before anybody cared about them, so because I think the prices are all jacked up on eBay now.
The IRS label. So what year was this?
We're going to talk about Headless Cross today, and that one came out in '88, I think it was.
Oh yeah, that was REM's label at that time. That's really interesting. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Oh, 1989. Yeah, 1989. Yeah, and it's got that really cool logo, but so yeah, today I'd like to talk about TYR, and I think I'm gonna do that for a later episode, but for now we're gonna stick with Headless Cross. And here, Dave, analyze the artwork.
All right, so it is a big gravestone that's I think that's a Celtic cross, moon in the background, misty field covered with rocks. Yeah, this looks like a heavy metal album, kind of like the atmospheric, spooky, gothic kind of metal, not like the disemboweled people or like the hair metal type thing either. It's very specific type of gloomy metal, which the kind of thing that Black Sabbath would fall under. That I could see this album on the classic albums really easily.
Well, you analyzed it perfectly because this is more in the heavy gothic rock kind of vein. I know you mentioned you're more familiar with the Ozzy era, but you're probably also pretty familiar with the Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules era.
Oh yeah, I know it, just not as well as the Ozzy era.
So this is going to be a bit more like that, but it's going to have more of the spooky gothic influence that was more the Ozzy era. So I think you can kind of expect this to be a bit of a hybrid. So
and then the back of the album, it's the head got knocked off of the tombstone, so I guess Headless Cross. and the font that all the song names is in is a kind of gothic script, the kind you would see on a reprinting of the cover of a gothic horror novel, one of the classic ones like Dracula or Carmilla, that type of thing.
I'm pretty sure you can actually find that font in the computer these days.
All right, yeah, that's
all right. So we're gonna put this on, and then we decided as a gimmick we're gonna stop for side 1 and then talk about it, and then put on side 2. So
if we sold our souls, this is where a commercial break would go.
Oh, and we're back, and that was side A. David, what did you think of side A?
I liked it so far. I liked the keyboard player. I'd never really thought of keys in a Sabbath album, except for the bits where Ozzy's playing synth on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, which is awesome and amateurish. But this was really cool, polished, interesting key parts, especially in that intro. That intro song, what was that called? Gates of Hell?
The Gates of Hell, yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. All the use of the weird synth sound, spooky atmospheric synth sounds, and tape distortion, and yeah, that was just really cool. Yeah, I liked it.
The interesting thing about the keyboard player is he joined, I think, on the Heaven and Hell album, either on the album or the tour. No, I think he was on the album. And he actually stayed with Sabbath up through their reunion in the 90s, and I think he ended up exiting the band after the reunion, but he was actually with Sabbath for a very long time and actually played with pretty much everybody, probably almost as long as anybody besides Iommi.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And he's a great keyboard player. And actually, he was initially hired to play bass on Heaven and Hell, and then they got Geezer back, and then they just kept him on keyboards. Now, my impressions of this album is I think it. You haven't heard the. I played you Born Again a few weeks ago, and that one is a bit more of a proper Sabbath album. But the two in between that were Seven Star, the one where Iommi looks all coked up, and Eternal Idol, the one I showed you the cover where the people on the cover almost died because they painted them. Those two albums, I think, sound a lot more commercial and what I would consider like more of an Iommi solo album, especially in the case of Seven Star. And Iommi would agree with you. I think he said as much in his solo album. But this one, it sounds like they were trying to write a Black Sabbath album and succeeded. It very much sounds like something that would fit in with the Dio era. But usually, I think the biggest discourse around these albums comes along with the vocalists. So compared to Ozzy and Dio, what do you think of Tony Martin's vocals?
He sounds more like Dio to me than Ozzy. Like more, I don't know, operatic, more technical. I think he does a good job with the songs as they are. I think he has that aggressive growl going to it while also still being able to hit those high notes. Really sells like the subject matter, which I think is cool. Kind of like that folk horror aesthetic. That feels like like the songs could be about like a movie like Witchfinder General or something like that.
Yeah, just kind of invoke like their early days when they were just trying to make like an album that scares people. And I think the biggest criticism I've heard, and I think one that comes from Iommi himself, is he relied a little bit too much on like the devil and that kind of stuff. But I think it's got a good spooky atmosphere, like as a listener.
Yeah, I like songs about the devil.
Well, songs about the devil are cool.
Yeah, because Satan is awesome. This podcast endorses Satan.
Speaking of which, but while we're listening to this, I'm skimming through Iommi's autobiography, and I guess during this tour, they were going to tour Mexico, and they actually got kicked out of the country before they could play. And I guess the Catholic Church like arranged for that to happen. And Iommi was saying like people showed up with like machine guns and forced him out. It's crazy.
I actually believe that. Yeah.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, I mean, I think Sabbath got shut down here in the United States a bunch of times in similar fashions. So.
You know what I think is funny about that is I've always saw Sabbath as kind of like a okay, hear me out, and part of this idea isn't wholly my own, but I can't really cite a comment on a message board that I read years ago. I can't remember who to cite for it, but like I consider Sabbath to be kind of a Christian band in the way that like The Exorcist is a Christian movie where it's beware the devil, he is crafty and will draw you into his seductive yet dangerous power.
All the guys in Sabbath would consider themselves Christian, I think. And Geezer Butler, I read his autobiography recently, and I think he would agree with you that Sabbath is more of a beware of the devil type thing than an endorsement of it. Ozzy would certainly agree with that statement as well. And I think even the front man from Stryper, the Christian metal band, cited After Forever as like one of the first like Christian metal songs, and it's hard to disagree with him.
Yeah, so I think that's why I think it's kind of funny that they've always developed that controversy, because they're not like. Well, Slayer has a Catholic in it too. Like Slayer is also doing that same kind of thing, but they're not like endorsing evil. They're just they're having fun in an aesthetic space that invokes like Christian ideas of evil.
Yeah. Well, so that was side A. Another thing we want to talk about, When Death Calls featured a solo from Brian May. I guess he was just kind of in the studio, and I was like, you want to play it? And he's like, oh, can I? And so he did the solo. And did you pick it out when you were listening to it?
I could tell it wasn't Iommi. It didn't sound like Iommi. It fit the song really well. It was really cool. It didn't necessarily sound like the kind of thing I associate with Brian May, but it was really good. It was a really good, cool solo, and it sounds like May probably just had a lot of fun doing it.
Oh, yeah. And those two are like really good friends, and I hope they do an album together sometime before one of them dies. Cause
I hope so, too. Yeah, they came kind of out of the same scene.
Yeah. Well, and they're talking about doing the box set that's coming out, and he was going to... have Tony Martin come down and maybe do like a couple of songs, but I guess they have an agreement that no songs besides the original lineup can be released after they got together. So at this point they can't. But it's like I'd love for there to be like maybe like an Iommi, Martin, May project with those three together. That'd be amazing, I think.
Yeah, maybe bring in that keyboard player too. And
he's passed away.
Oh, never mind. The rhythm section on this was really good.
It's Lawrence Cottle on bass, and he's not like a name. Like, he's just kind of a jazz session player. And Iommi was even commenting like he doesn't look the part like at all. He looks just like a jazz guy. And he was in the video. And maybe before we do the final stuff, I'll show you the video. I was thinking when he was playing, he sounded a lot like Geezer Butler. Like he kind of got that vibe down. Fills and that kind of stuff. And then the drummer is Cozy Powell, who was on Rainbow with Dio, so there's a connection there as well.
Nice. Oh, a good session bass player can like listen to the old albums and be like, okay, yeah, I can do something like this, and kind of add the flourishes that really make it fit.
Yeah,
so yeah,
it sounds like he did his homework when he did this, and he comes up later in like Sabbath lore on Tony Iommi's first solo album that he was able to release under his name, where he plays with Tony and Ozzy and Bill on a track. So it's like kind of Black Sabbath, because all of those people were in Black Sabbath, but it's just minus Geezer because they were fighting at the time. But I think that's all I got to say about side A. Are you ready to move on to side B?
Yes. There's also probably some ideas that I want to hold off for till I've listened to the whole thing before I comment.
Yeah,
so
same.
Put a pin in that.
All right.
Why'd you leave your kids out on the table? The B-52's version.
That worked way too well.
It did.
Okay, and we're back from side B. David, what did you think of side B?
As a whole, I thought it was a weaker side than side one, although it wasn't bad. Like, this isn't an album that I would say like really drops off on side two like a lot of albums. I thought the first two tracks on it started off sounding too much like commercial 80s metal, not quite Hair, but getting pretty close to Hair. Sounding more sounding more LA than Britain.
Yeah, not typically a sound that I enjoy. Like there's some bands that do it well, but yeah, like I'm guessing you don't care for it as much.
No, yeah, that's not my thing. I'm a little allergic to that sound. Although, like, these songs weren't bad. They didn't get quite into that territory, but they sounded in the neighborhood of them until like the second half of each song got much better. Like, it got spookier and cool, and I liked that. But then Black Moon, the second to the last song, side 2, track 3 of 4, was my favorite song on the whole album for some reason. It's like, I have this really cool blues riff to it.
Yeah, it kind of had a vibe that I would say is more similar to the classic Sabbath era. It's got kind of a blues shuffle, but you mentioned you thought it sounded a bit more like Zeppelin than Sabbath, and I can see that.
Yeah.
I could see like Ozzy singing that song.
I could too, yeah. And then I liked the album closer. I thought that was a good album closer. I liked that it was about Dick Grayson, just like Judas Priest did a song about Kurt Wagner. Favorite, like the all-time great 80s superheroes.
Yeah, that song I thought was really cool because it had a lot of really dynamic moments and a lot of different changing parts, which I think works really well for a song closer.
I've always wanted to open a beer on mic. The previous podcast I was on was for work, so I suppose I could have gotten like a soda or an iced tea and opened it on mic and never did, but I've always just wanted to open a beer on mic.
But you would have known it wasn't a beer, so artistically it needed to be a beer.
Yes. But yeah, as a whole, I liked it. I've never really listened to this era of Sabbath. I think it was interesting that they were on an indie label, which I guess that would put them like in the same scene as, I don't know, like who are the more indie metal bands of that era, like the Melvins, which doesn't sound like the Melvins, doesn't sound like Butthole Surfers, doesn't sound like but
which is funny because like their early era, I could kind of peg with the Melvins. But yeah, I don't see this one kind of sounding like the grunge bands of the era, even though they influenced those bands.
Yeah, but yeah, as a whole, it was a really good album.
Do you think, because the biggest discourse that I hear among the Tony Martin albums is they're just not as good as the classic Ozzy or Dio era albums? Do you agree with that assessment?
I mean, they're okay. I don't think they're as good as a lot of the classic ones, but nothing's going to be the classic ones, and they do their own thing pretty well, even if they harken back a lot to the earlier ones. It does sound kind of like. It sounds like, even though it's only one of the same members, it sounds like it fits in with like the kind of like a cross between the Ozzy and Dio eras.
I was saying when we were listening, it's almost like they Cronenberg together the Ozzy and Dio era.
Yes,
because Tony Martin reminds me a lot of Dio, although he's a lot more restrained. Because Dio kind of goes into an aggressive, growly territory sometimes, and then Ozzy's kind of got his more depressed style that Tony Martin doesn't really do. There is a live album where he sings Ozzy songs that I might show you sometime in the future, but
yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, like, I'm a Sabbath obsessed fan, so when I got done with the Ozzy and Dio eras and I was looking for stuff to buy, and that was back before anybody cared about these albums, so I was able to get them off eBay for like $5, and now I think they're in like the $30 and $40 territory for even like a beat up used copy, but although the box set's going to be out soon, so that'll change that. But I picked it up, and I thought this album and the TYR, which we're going to visit probably in a week or two, I thought they fit in very well with the Sabbath lineup, probably even better than the two that came before it, which I'd say is more of a Tony Iommi solo project. Like this one, it sounds like he's like, all right, what made Sabbath, and they tried to go more for that. There's a little bit of what, not quite hair metal, but I kind of liked it. I never really thought about it before until we were listening to it today, but I've kind of felt like the more poppy moments worked pretty well when it was contrasting with like the creepiness, the creepy like Sabbath vibe. Like it's almost like they tricked you into listening to a more commercial song, and then they hit you with this like nasty Sabbath style riff.
Yeah, I really liked it. Like I was ready to be disappointed by those songs after hearing like the first half, and then it switched from something that you would hear in an exercise montage in an 80s movie to like something actually really cool, and the build-up made it work, and it made me retroactively like this stuff that I'd previously been a little cold on.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it worked in the end. It was just as a whole, I didn't like side 2 as much as side 1, but that's kind of true of most records.
Yeah.
There's a small handful of records where I like side 2 better. Maybe we'll get to one eventually.
Side 1 was very strong, and side 2 wasn't quite as strong, but the closer and the one before that were both very, very strong. So the album as a whole, say, maybe can't hang with Master Reality, but I think is still worth seeking out if you're a Sabbath fan.
Yeah. Or if you just want to hear some good 80s metal that isn't hair shit, I think this is you really can do much worse than this. Like I think as a whole it was a good album. Like it doesn't hit like that classic first 5 or like even the early Dio stuff level of just like iconicness, but it's solid music. Rhythm section's great. The addition of the keyboards as like an official member of the band, not something that Ozzy or Tony just kind of throw in if they feel it fits in. Just it was really good. It was well integrated.
I will mention real quick though, they did do Jeff Nichols a little dirty. Because they wouldn't let him be up front on stage for some reason until like he might have been on this tour, but like on previous tours they hit him for some reason. And that's a common practice with metal bands and keyboard players for some reason. But
I was kind of annoyed that he didn't show up at all in the music video. Honestly,
yeah. And then well, first we'll talk about the bonus track, and then we'll come back around to the music video. But the bonus track, I'm going to air a slight grievance. I'm kind of annoyed that on the box set it's not going to be on the vinyl version, but just the CD version, because each of them is going to have a bonus track on the CD version, and on the vinyl version it won't have those bonus tracks. And I guess maybe there's a space concern, but I'm kind of annoyed they didn't put them on a separate record or something like that, so the vinyl people can get them. But
yeah, throw in a bonus 45, or just adjust the play speed so that you can fit it on, or yeah,
because I would have loved to have those on vinyl, because I thought Cloak and Dagger was a really good track. What did you think of it?
Cloak and Dagger was like probably my third favorite track out of the whole thing, so I really wish they'd found a way to keep it on. Maybe
I would have replaced the two songs that opened side B with that song. Like either of those, I think I could have replaced them with, even though I think they're good songs. But if I was in charge at the time, I probably would have maybe even opened side B with that song.
It was just a really cool song. It's the one that, like, it all felt quite a bit like classic Sabbath to me, but it's the one that felt the most like it. So maybe they found it wasn't, like the most original. I don't know why they didn't include it. I'm speculating wildly. It was a really good song.
And he didn't talk about it in his autobiography. You wonder what goes through their heads at the time, because I've heard so many like B-sides that are just like, why wasn't that on the album?
Yeah, I've heard some songs where it's like some bonus tracks or some B-sides or some unreleased song from an aborted recording session, all that, or like some of the best thing the band has ever done, and then the band never mentions it. Like they consider it like whatever. Like my example of it would be, of this from another band, would be All Play Rebel by Killing Joke, which was in like some abandoned sessions for the songs that they would later do on Nighttime, but it's like that was one of the many that from the Kid Jansen, or I think whatever they call it, sessions that just didn't make. And it was like, why? This is one of the best songs you ever did. Why didn't this ever get released on anything? What's going on?
Yeah, I remember you showing me that one, and it's like, you kind of wonder why they didn't dig it up later even. But
yeah, I guess sometimes though, like when you're in the moment, you're not approaching it like an audience, and so those things don't always click.
Yeah, maybe they just didn't click with Cloak and Dagger, so they're just like a bonus track, or maybe it was just a record company thing. Because I get the impression that Iommi just looks at this stuff like a product to be sold. Like once it gets to the record label, like not that he's not proud of his songs, but it sounds like once they go to the record label, he's just like, all right, that's their problem. They're like, here's the songs, you get them out there.
I did my end, you do yours.
Yeah, exactly. So he probably didn't even have any say on whether that was on the album or not, but I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
But.
Well, and then by now, I'm sure, by the time he wrote his autobiography, he's written so many songs, he's not going to remember all of them.
Yeah. Well, with how much coke he was probably on in this period, I doubt he remembers much of anything.
Yeah, true.
I'm kind of surprised. I'll bet you had some people around. They was just like, hey, you were around for the Headless Cross tour. Can you give me some refreshers?
What did I play on this one?
Now, I showed you the music video for Headless Cross, and that also featured the remastered version that's going to be coming out. And I did notice some more tightness on the bass end, especially on the keyboards. Sounds like the sound's going to be a little better than the original mix. And the video, I guess they played at a place called Battle Abbey near Hastings in Sussex. And that's where William the Conqueror defeated King Harold at the Battle of Hastings.
That's something Sabbath would do. Yep.
So yeah, that's where they did that video, and that was a very cool setting for a music video, I thought.
Yeah, it evoked the same mood as the cover. Just wish they'd had the keyboard player on screen.
I thought it was funny because Iommi mentioned Lawrence Cottle, the session bass player, didn't look anything like a metal guy. Like he was just like a standard jazz guy. And we're watching the videos, and it's just like he just puts on black clothes. Yeah,
he looked like, I don't know, the camera didn't stay on him long enough to get a clear view, but it looked like an office temp wearing a black shirt with his black work pants, basically.
Yeah, they didn't focus on him at all, so it's like they knew. Well, so that was the Headless Cross. We're going to do an album from Dave next time, and then after that, we're going to talk about TYR, which I think is all the things that you liked about this album, I think, are ramped up on that next one. So
nice.
You can look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Oh, and next episode, I'm going to be bringing a double album. So I don't know how we're going to break. We'll discuss that next time. But I am going to be bringing the name of this band is Talking Heads because we're already doing a live art rock double album. So looking forward to that.
Just hitting him with it right away.
Yeah, just start with that.
Yeah, at some point I'll have to do Hawkwind Search in Space just as an answer to that.
Oh, I have a Hawkwind one that I'm going to bring in later too. But yeah, we're going to have fun.
Exactly. All right, well, we don't have a guest today, so I guess we'll just plug our own shit. We're both in projects called The Alliterates and Lucid Fugue. The theme song is from our first Lucid Fugue EP called Non-Euclidean Pornography. We got an EP out for The Alliterates that you can find on various places. Dave was in a band called Gong Farmer. I was in a band called Megaton. And you can find all my stuff on Kill Rock Music SWS on most social medias, or killrockmusic.com. That's KILRAVOC. And Dave, do you got any socials you want to plug?
Yeah. The Alliterates and Lucid Fugue stuff is all on your channel too.
Oh yeah, so, yeah. If you go to my website, that's all in there too.
Yeah. So I guess you could, like, if you really want to find Gong Farmer's Bandcamp, you totally can. That's GONGFERMOUR. And I think it's just like, gongfarmer.bandcamp.com.
There's some good shit on there.
There is, yeah. It's like a spooky post-punk goth type thing. It started as more of like a nervy Devo type thing, and then I think we just got more depressed as we kept going. But yeah, and there's that, and then
it is kind of a precursor to our current project in a lot of ways. I mean, we were all in Gong Farmer before we formed the Alliterates, so
yeah. But yeah, I think that's all I have to plug. I'm sure I will have more to plug as I start moving into my content production phase. Oh, if you want to hear me in a more professional podcast setting, since I referenced this podcast earlier, check out some of the old episodes of Omaha Public Library's podcast, The Book Drop. Especially check out episode 97, Book Soundtracking. That was the one where I am the most like this on. There's an episode coming out soon that is the last one before a format change. I hadn't been on it in a while, that point, but I come on right before the format change to do kind of a farewell episode, so you can also listen to that. I think that's all.
All right, well, go listen to Black Sabbath, everybody, and have a good day.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve. This is our second episode, and I am Dave.
And I'm Steve.
And it's my turn to bring an album. And Steve, what do you know about the band Talking Heads?
Well, we watched that live DVD a few weeks ago, so that's pretty much it.
Oh yeah, Stop Making Sense?
Yeah. Where he had the big suit.
Yeah. So they were a part of like the initial New York City's like CBGB's, Max's Kansas City, Mud Club, punk scene, like in the mid-70s that kind of became huge in 77. They were on the arty side of things. That was, the New York scene was the more arty scene to begin with compared to like London and LA.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but they were the art nerds out of the art nerd scene, because like the other arty bands within their scene were the hard drinking, hard drugs poet types who did a lot of heroin and talked a lot about religion and stuff, while Talking Heads were the, kind of like, they dressed preppy as kind of a joke, but kind of like the preppy art nerds who were into mosaics and doing, like, their second album was even called More Songs About Buildings and Food. But yeah, the album that I brought is not Stop Making Sense, but it is their first live record, called, the name of this band is Talking Heads, and it represents what their live show was like, and basically the first three phases of their career. So like, there's some stuff from the really early stuff, there's after they'd started getting some momentum and playing bigger venues, and then there was the one with the expanded lineup when they were starting to do world tours. All of this is before Stop Making Sense. Stop Making Sense was done in the early 80s to promote their fifth record. This album was put out between their fourth and their fifth record, when they were kind of on a break to work on side projects to make sure that they didn't completely burn out from working together as kind of what I think was going on without it being directly stated, because that was like at the point where like some tensions were starting to develop behind the scenes, but they all kind of went and did like some solo or side stuff and put this out in between to just kind of show everyone that, hey, we're still out there, we're just working on our own stuff for a minute.
So as far as who's in the band at this time, does this band have like a stable lineup, or does it change throughout this? Because it looks like this is over a few different eras.
They more or less had a stable lineup. Their very early days, they started as a three-piece. The three-piece stuff isn't represented there because by the time they released their first album, they'd added a fourth member, and that fourth member was with the band through its entire run, as well as the original three.
Okay.
So like there's their initial 4-piece that this starts at the beginning of. That was the one that played at CBGB's and existed alongside like the Ramones and Patti Smith and Television and the Heartbreakers and bands like that. But then by 1980 they were getting more and more into both funk and experimental electronic music. Funk was because they'd always been kind of interested in funk and soul. The experimental electronic stuff was because their second through fourth albums, they'd worked a lot with ambient music pioneer, among many other things. Brian Eno, will do like an episode on Brian Eno later. I'm not even scratching the surface by calling him that, but working with Brian Eno kind of led them to be more experimental and play around with like jamming on a single chord for a while and then taking pieces of that and mixing that into whole new songs. And so by the time they went to tour with that kind of stuff, they realized they needed to expand their lineup greatly, so they added another guitar player, another bass player, and Tina Weymouth, who had been the bass player previously, would sometimes do a bass line with the additional bass player, but other times would like switch to guitar or synthesizer. Then they added like a percussionist, another keyboard player, backup singers, and it went from small type band to a kind of big sweeping band, and you'll hear it as we get into it. But the first LP is just two different eras of when they were a 4-piece. So
gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking at the cover here, and the first side here. The first side here shows them as more of a living room band. I'm guessing this one represents the 77 to 79 era.
Yep.
And then you flip it, and I really like how you flip it horizontally instead of vertically. And on this side, it's their later 80 to 81 era, and there's a whole bunch of different members on stage now. Looks like we got some interesting looking instruments here. Got a Jaguar bass, Jaguar guitar, Telecaster, acoustic guitar. Then you flip it over and Strats and Tellys.
Yeah, they get more expensive instruments. Like if you look at the synth on the back, that's a Prophet 5. You can't even see the little cheap organ that they have to the side on the front there. But yeah, it's they get a lot more resources as they keep going.
Let's cue it up.
All right, that was first side of the first LP. Steve, what did you think?
I thought it was a very fantastic recording.
So yeah, they recorded it in like a living room studio in Massachusetts a couple months after their first record, Talking Head 77, came out. A lot of energy. Yeah. What did you think of David Byrne's vocals?
First, I'll mention that the production on this was great for it being recorded in a living room, although, I mean, I record in a living room, so I guess that shouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But, David Byrne's vocals are great. He's not a technical singer, but that's not what you're going for with this kind of stuff, so very unique. I thought the rhythm section was fantastic. How many people were playing on this?
4.
So that was 4 people, because they made a lot of noise for 4 people. Like there was a lot of different like counter melodies going on and stuff like that.
Like a lot of the bands in the New York punk scene at that time, like I know what most people think about when they think about that scene is like the Ramones, where it's just one rhythm guitar playing really fast. But a lot of the bands in that scene were known for like the interplay of like 2 guitarists off of each other. Like the band that everyone thought would hit big from that scene was called Television, and they had a 10-minute song called Marquee Moon, which is just all interweaving guitar melodies. And so yeah, like this was like the arty New York punk scene was a lot of like dynamic back and forth guitar parts like that, which is one thing I really love about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy, and they're all really good at like filling up the space. I would have assumed that there were 6 people playing, at least, with all that was going on. And rarely do I think the musicians were playing the same melody. It looked like they were all kind of doing something different most of the time.
Big shout out to the rhythm section, particularly the bassist, Tina Weymouth. She learned bass for the band, and they recruited her because she was Chris Franz, the drummer's girlfriend.
Oh, that was it?
And that somehow worked out. I have seen a billion like small local bands where that has happened and has been a complete disaster. So
she's a great bass player. I noted that when I was listening to it. I really like that deep, clean bass tone.
Yeah, and it really kind of holds things down. Like at the end of Psycho Killer, where the whole song speeds up and David, Jerry, and Chris are all kind of freaking out, and she's she's just playing, like just that driving bass line, just a lot faster than she was, and just kind of holding the whole thing down.
Yeah, Psycho Killer I think is my favorite on there, but I liked all of the songs on it.
Yeah. So my favorite particular song on this one is the second one, A Clean Break, and the reason why that's my favorite song on this one is that song was never released on any other album.
Oh, yeah.
That was a song they did live for this and kind of got lost in the shuffle after that, and it is kind of one of the best songs they ever did as a band.
Yeah, we were talking about that last time, like great songs that just kind of never get brought up again or whatever.
Yeah.
Did they ever play it like later on?
I think they did. They didn't include the whole session, so they chose to include it, so they clearly didn't want to get lost. If you do ever want to hear the whole session, when they released the CD version of this in like the 90s, they added a bunch of tracks.
I noticed it's almost twice as long when I was looking at the Wikipedia entry.
Yeah, and so like they for the CD version, they made sure to have like this entire living room studio set, which I think is really cool.
Wow. And I also got to say, except for like at the end when you can hear like the crowd of probably like about a dozen people or whatever, I would have assumed this was a studio recording. I thought it was that good.
Yeah. Well, fun thing is, like, if you look at the credits, it was mixed by Ed Stasium, who is mainly known for working with the Ramones. So it was like the scene, like they did all know each other, and like there was around this time when Talking Heads and Ramones like did a U.S. tour together, which if I had a time machine, that'd be a show I would want to see.
Oh wow! If I had a time machine, there's so many shows that I'd go and see. But yeah, that'd probably be a noteworthy one.
Yeah. And then another highlight just for the songs in that is the third one, Don't Worry About the Government, just because it's a song called Don't Worry About the Government.
Yeah.
And it's just about like some guy who's completely isolated and doing his own thing and not living any kind of life that would get him into any trouble. And so it's kind of like a little subtle dig at normal centrism there.
Yeah, it's like that doesn't sound familiar at all these days.
I also like one thing that is on this first side that David Byrne stops doing is introducing most of the songs, but the name of this song is New Feeling, and that's what it's about. Like that's something that he eventually kind of stopped doing as he got more confident, but I find it charming, and I'm glad that he did it. Like the name of this album is kind of a reference to that by calling it, the name of this band is Talking Heads.
That's funny.
But it's also called that because they wanted to emphasize that it's Talking Heads, not the Talking Heads.
Oh. All right, on to side B. Oh, and one more fun fact I think I read on Wikipedia is they played without David Byrne in the 90s, I think it was, and they called it the Shrunken Heads. And it really doesn't have anything to do with this, but I thought it was funny.
That was the second side of the name of this band is Talking Heads. A little context for it. That one was recorded at a Capitol Theater in a city I don't remember in New Jersey, so much bigger than a little living room studio in Massachusetts, bigger crowd. It was recorded in 79, so that would have been after they'd released their next two albums. So while first side was mainly stuff off of their first album, 77, this was mainly stuff off of their second album, more songs about buildings and food, and their third album, Fear of Music. One song on there was a little different. That one was Love Goes to a Building on Fire. That was their very first single, and the studio version of that was before Jerry joined the band, so it's the only single they recorded as a three-piece. That was side 2. Steve, what did you think about it as compared to the first side?
Well, it obviously had more of a live feeling since this was recorded in auditorium rather than... The first thing I noticed is that it had a very 80s sound. So I asked Dave what year this was, and he said 79. So it's like, oh yeah, so the 80s is coming, basically. So it's like you can hear the influence that it's going to have on the next decade. I think my favorite song on it was the last one, Memories.
Yeah. Memories Can't Wait. That is their dark, menacing New York drug song, and it's really good. It's one of the best songs off their third album, Fear of Music, which was them kind of shifting into darker lyrical content. Their second album, More Songs About Building and Food, lyrically is pretty similar to 77, like a lot of kind of weird songs about the observations David Byrne makes about the world around him, and it was largely made of leftover songs from that era. And the reason why it stands out as a great album of its own right is largely because of the production, which was when Brian Eno kind of stepped in and became kind of the unofficial fifth member. He never played with them live, but like his work in the studio really pushed them forward. And so More Songs About Building and Food, like, well, it has some great songs on it. Like, what makes it really great is the production kind of propelled the band forward into what they would become. Well, then their third album, Fear of Music, was them sitting in, that more kind of spooky, atmospheric moment and writing like appropriately dark lyrics to fit that. So you had Memories Can't Wait and Air were the two ones off of this side that were from that album. And, they're pretty different from like Stay Hungry and Artists Only, which were the More Songs About Building and Food ones. Just kind of like darker, more menacing. Like the synth on Air was appropriately atmospheric, and just like I really love like the moment in the vocals for Air. Some people say not to worry about the air. Some people don't know shit about the air. It's like a darker, angrier version of like the complacent people who say don't worry about anything that he was more lightly making fun of, and don't worry about the government back on the first side.
Similar themes.
Yeah.
It's almost like these songs ended up influencing probably two different sets of rock and roll, because while I could hear like the influence on 80s new wave, I wouldn't be surprised if the guys from Rush were listening to this when they were making Moving Pictures or listening to Talking Heads anyway.
Oh, they definitely were. Yeah.
But I could also hear, especially in the darker ones that you mentioned, the beginnings of like grunge. I could hear like Melvins, Soundgarden, Nirvana, that type of stuff too. So there's just everything in this, I've noticed.
Yeah, they were an incredibly eclectic band. I think everyone, even if you're not like a super fan like me that likes everything on their first 5 albums and then a lot of stuff on their later stuff too, you can find something you like among anything they do. So they just kind of went where the inspiration took them, and they didn't care about like how abstract and weird it got. They just kind of went there. Around the time they put out this live album, one of the side projects David Byrne was working on was he and Brian Eno just made an album with no vocal tracks on it. They just grabbed random samples of like different televangelists being creepy. They called it My Life in the Bushes of Ghosts. My favorite song off of that is kind of like the most controversial one. It's called A Jezebel Spirit, and it takes like the actual recorded samples of an exorcism and plays back like the preacher being weird and talking about how the woman who he's talking to is possessed, and it is just this fantastic creepy song.
That's really cool.
One thing that I think I should note is the difference between this, the original LP version, and the CD version with a billion more tracks in it, is the CD version includes an entire different performance from 78 that it puts in between like the 77 Massachusetts living room studio set with this like bigger auditorium set, and kind of bridges the gap a little bit. And it's I think it's all songs off of More Songs About Building and Food on that, except for an earlier version of a song that would later show up on Fear of Music that sounds pretty different. But I think it does a really good job at bridging the gap between, like the kind of quirky band who would release an album called More Songs About Building and Food, and then the kind who would do like the creepy, atmospheric, dark and threatening synths and release an album, like a just incredibly paranoid album called Fear of Music. So that's the main thing I have to say about side 2.
Fantastic. What do you have to look forward to on this next side?
This next side is going to be when they expanded their lineup considerably for their 4th album, Remain in Light, which, like, this live album, this double live album, is my favorite album of theirs, like my favorite to listen to. But if you had to ask me what their best album was, I would have to say Remain in Light. It's when they really they decided to really lean into like the African funk type stuff and let's jam on a single chord for 7 minutes, but still record like the kind of dark, menacing lyrics that we did for Fear of Music and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I asked Dave again how many people were playing on this side, and he said, still 4.
Yeah, so, this is still 4 people.
Yeah, we'll get to see what they sound like with even more people finally. So.
Yeah, I think it's like 8 or 9, maybe 10. I'd have to like count the names in the credits to say exactly how many people were on stage for this next part that we're going to listen to.
Well, all right. Well, we're going to go on to side 3 now. So we'll be back after that.
Great. That was side C. Just going to confuse who does which numbering system in this episode, because why not? Yeah, Steve, what did you think about that one? That one was the one with more than 4 people.
Indeed, it definitely had a very large sound. Each side, it's almost like it ramps up even more, and with the addition of more musicians, they were able to somehow sound even bigger.
Yeah, I counted while listening to it. That's 6 more people on stage. It was a 10-piece. But yeah, one thing that I think is interesting about this one in particular, I'm going to kind of go over the different musicians that were on it. Most of them were funk musicians. Some of them were like label mates. Some of them were just people they knew from New York.
Yeah, they really ramped up the funk on this side.
Yeah, I have called Talking Heads before dance music for people with anxiety disorders.
I can see that because that's exactly I have anxiety disorder, so I'm like, that kind of works really well with my anxiety and ADHD.
Yeah, and the keyboard player they added for this side was Bernie Warnell, and he previously had worked with Parliament Funkadelic, so he was kind of one of the bigger names that they had. The second bass player they added, because yes, they had a lot of those songs either had 2 basses or Tina would switch to guitar or synthesizer. But the second bass player they added was Busta Jones, and he was someone who had just kind of been around the scene. From what I gather, this has been from reading a lot of secondhand sources and the like, including Wikipedia when I can't sleep at 3 a.m. But yeah, some of this, he was pigeonholed by a lot of the labels as a session player for funk bands, but he considered himself more of a rock guy because the studios were being racist. He was a black guy, and he wanted to play on rock music, so he would kind of briefly join up with rock bands to see if he could launch more of a rock career, and it just never ended up going anywhere.
Was the label run by Cartman?
Yeah, which I think is one of the great unfair things, because he's great. After he did this, he decided to join with the English post-punk band Gang of Four for all of one tour when their bass player quit, and they wanted to keep him on, but he was like, no, I kind of want to see if I can do my own thing now that I've successfully played with Talking Heads and Gang of Four, and went nowhere with the label. He co-wrote a song with the Ramones at one point in the 80s. He was kind of all over the place, and I wish his career had taken off the way he wanted it to, because he's great. The 2 backup singers, Delette McDonald and Nona Hendrix, I can't find much on Delette McDonald. I don't know what she did after this. She didn't end up being one of the backup singers on Stop Making Sense, the concert movie that came later. Nona Hendrix was a label mate who had her own solo career unrelated to this, which I think she just kind of went on back to doing after all this. Steve Scales was the percussionist. He was on Stop Making Sense too. And then the one member of this expanded lineup that wasn't, part of like the whole New York funk thing was Adrian Belew, who Brian Eno brought on because Brian Eno had played with him on David Bowie's Lodger album, which didn't produce, but he was the keyboard player on, and he had worked with this great guitar player named Adrian Belew, who would then go on to be the guitarist and lead singer, so I guess backup guitarist, lead singer of King Crimson, so just playing along with Robert Fripp.
Oh yeah,
So they got a little bit of prog in there with all the funk. And then
I was gonna say this album reminds me a lot of the prog bands that were going on at the time, because I could hear some similarities with the Rush albums that were coming out at the time, the Yes albums that were coming out at the time, Genesis. I feel like they're probably pretty good stable mates with the progressive rock bands that were coming out at the time. I could even hear some Pink Floyd.
Yeah, like all these bands were listening to each other. From what I can tell, the rivalry between like punk and new wave and prog was largely manufactured to sell newspapers.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
I know like John Lydon, Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols didn't like Pink Floyd, but that's about it. And like his complaints about Pink Floyd were complaints Roger Waters made about Pink Floyd, so like I even take those with a grain of salt. So
I always thought the rivalries between like punk and metal was kind of weird too.
Yeah. Well, and then once I read, going back to Genesis a little bit, I read an interview with Peter Gabriel once where he was talking about, I went to punk shows all the time. No one gave me any trouble. They knew who I was. They went to our shows too. We just kind of hung out. I think Peter Gabriel loved going to like the Clash especially. And
I can see Peter Gabriel liking Clash.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more cross-germination between like a lot of the different bands at that time.
Yeah, because I could hear a lot of prog rock in this, and it's probably with the introducing the funk and the gospel aspects that was being done by a lot of the prog bands at the time. So it's really cool to hear the progression we've heard so far.
Yeah. And I know I talked a lot about Remain in Light going into this, but 3 of the 4 songs on this side are Fear of Music tracks just played with the expanded lineup. The one Remain in Light one on this side was Houses in Motion, the really long one that was second to the last, and that one you can really hear the difference in. But Ezimbra, which, speaking of King Crimson, the studio version of Ezimbra has a guest guitarist on it, Robert Fripp.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So,
by the way, did you see that Robert Fripp started an OnlyFans account?
Good for him.
Everybody go subscribe to Robert Fripp's OnlyFans account. Let's make that get up there.
Yes. I want him to be the #1 creator on OnlyFans.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I think my favorite song on this side was Drugs.
Drugs is an amazing song. It's one of my all-time favorite Talking Heads songs. It
had a lot of great hooks in it.
Yeah, it has like a billion hooks, and I'm glad it's on this one too, because like Drugs was the song that closed out Fear of Music, and it was the one where they Ezimbra was the track that opened Fear of Music, and Drugs was the one that closed it, and both of those were the ones that were kind of the precursors to what they'd end up doing in Remain in Light, where Ezimbra was, like them playing around with funk and African polyrhythms and stuff like that, while Drugs was playing around with the let's all just record a bunch of different things, jamming on the same chord or different parts in the same key, and then grab different parts and kind of combine them together into something that we didn't play together in studio to just create this weird, dark, alienating song.
Yeah, that'd be pretty easy to do these days with the kind of tools that we have with digital recording studios. But back then, that had to have been a pain in the ass to put together.
It must have been, too. And I think Drugs would have been a song they just abandoned if they didn't have that method. Because, what they were doing in the studios, they weren't quite happy with. There's an early version of it called Electricity, which is on the CD version because they played it in 78, which I love, but it doesn't sound very much like what ended up coming out at all. And so I think it probably would have ended up being abandoned and just kind of resurfaced on compilations and live albums the way A Clean Break from the first side did, if they hadn't figured out a new way to just record it and then go that way for their entire next album.
So what do we have to look forward to on this next side, on side D or 4 or whatever the fuck?
Last side we have their Al Green cover, "Take Me to the River," which is actually from their second album, More Songs About Building and Food, but
which was also on Stop Making Sense.
Yeah, which is also on Stop Making Sense, and that one was this live version is a lot different from what they did in the album, because like on the album it's clearly recorded by a 4-piece. This one, it really like uses the backup singer as well to make it more like a gospel song, and it just sounds huge and sweeping. And then we have 2 of the extended one-chord jam sessions with The Great Curve and Cross-Eyed and Painless to close out the whole thing, and just a great note to conclude this whole thing on, because I really feel like this song doesn't have live versions of every Essential song that had come out at this point, but it really does a good job at giving the whole trajectory of their career up to this point. The CD version has every Essential song they've done at this point.
Yeah, this is a very good retrospective. As somebody that's not very familiar with this group, I feel like this covers, if you wanted to start somewhere, I feel like this would be a good starting place.
I would actually recommend this as a starting place over like a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are going to flip it over to the last side and then wrap things up. So see you in a little bit. All right, and that was the name of this band is Talking Heads. I have a confession to make. I have listened to the CD version more than the vinyl version because of how much I listen to music while driving. So I believed the song order that was written on the back of the album, but it was wrong. Take Me to the River was the last song of side 4, not the first.
Yeah, that got me. I was kind of confused by that. I'm like, wow, this sounds way different than the Stop Making Sense version.
Yeah.
I want to get one of those big mouth Billy basses and hack it so it's the version of this song, because remember it saying "Take Me to the River."
Yeah, that'd be so good. But yeah, one thing that's really impressive about listening to their live show evolve over the course of 4 years is just like David Byrne's evolution as a vocalist. Like, he's barely together in the first one in a way that he has control of and that he uses well. He sings like much closer to something that seems on key by 1981.
There was never a moment where I thought he was a bad vocalist, but I did notice as they progressed, his vocals were getting a lot better. Whereas I thought the band from the beginning were incredibly tight.
This is, I think, one of the more dramatic changes over 4 years that I think any band has gone through, while still seeming like the same band, that they didn't like radically shift out of left field, that they just naturally evolved this way, but like in such a wild direction.
It's crazy that's only 4 years, because that almost seems like a decade of progress.
Yeah. But yeah, what was your favorite track of that last side there?
I think the opening track was probably my favorite one.
Oh, The Great Curve?
Yeah,
that one's really good.
Yeah, I think overall, I thought that one seemed like a continuation of the previous side in a lot of ways, because the first record was stripped back and then almost like a studio version, and then a proper like live side, and then this one's like the full ensembles, and that continued on side 1 and side B. Or side 3 and side D. I thought, just like the rest of it, there was never a point on this entire record where I was bored and wanted it to get to the next song. All of the instrumentation is very engaging on this, I'd say.
Yeah, especially when they're doing like the repetitive single chord funk music, they're able to just catch and grab your attention with it.
Yeah,
which I think is really cool. I really liked the way that both of the basses sound together on Cross-Eyed and Painless. I thought that was really cool. I think it was interesting that I would call both bass lines and bass sounds muscular, but they didn't sound the same. They were muscular in a different way. Like Tina's was more punchy, while Busta's was a little more fluid.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
One thing, going back to Adrian Belew, like his soloing, I think, is really cool on here. You can look up videos of this era when he was in the band. You know, he'd left by Stop Making Sense but you can see him playing and doing like really weird stuff, like tuning while playing to do how some of those notes are sliding. And then one thing that one final comment I really have about this record as a whole is this is one of those bands where if there is a live version of, I think, any of their songs, I think I like that version better than the version in the studio. I do love the studio tracks, but there's just like energy and vitality to it. And I'm a big Brian Eno fan, so this is no disrespect to him and the kind of stuff he did in the studio and helped them really, like discover what these songs were. But there's just like the faster tempo, the more aggressive vocal delivery, the punchier basses. It all just works so much better live. And one of the reasons why I really like a lot of their stuff live is they had a tendency to, in the studio, fade their stuff out before they would on the live track. And I've heard people say that they think fade outs are an excuse and they didn't know how to finish the song. I don't think that's true in this case, because I feel like sometimes the best part of the song is what's after the fade out. Like if we want to go all the way back to side 2, there was that song Stay Hungry, where at the end there's just like kind of went from a punchier, funkier song to kind of like a dronier, creepy song. And like the vocals in that was, like, here's that rhythm again, here's my shoulder blade, here's the picture I saved, here's the sound I made, here I am, oh, here I am. And it just gets like more aggressive. The studio version fades out while he's doing like the here's that picture I saved part, and I think the song is weaker for that. Going back to side 3 with Life During Wartime, the live versions always keep going when the studio versions start fading out on the line, You Better Get You Some Sleep, which is a fun place to fade out because it feels like the song is going on forever and it's about like the daily lives of urban guerrillas after society has collapsed. And so it's like, it feels like it's never ending and it keeps going. But just like the lyrics that they have after the fade out, like my chest is aching and it burns like a furnace, the burning keeps me alive, I think is really cool. And then I just like the extended like high energy instrumental jam they have after that too. So there's just a number of reasons why I just feel like their live versions sound like more vital and more important in the moment to me.
That reminds me a lot of Deep Purple in their live albums. They tend to extend their songs like well past what they did on the studio versions, and a lot of times they end up doing like these really cool jams. I think that's why Made in Japan is such a great live album. It sounds like it's a pretty similar thing with this album, where the tracks just have a bit more energy and they're able to cut loose in a way that's probably not easy to replicate in the studio.
Yeah. I wonder if me singing the entire outro to Stay Hungry is what gets Warner Brothers to come after me, but we'll see.
Oh, no. We're going to jail.
Oh, well, and so on that note, we will be living in a van loaded with weapons because we're being pursued by Warner Brothers, but we will still find a way to drop more episodes for you. Steve, what do we have next?
So last time I said we were going to do Tear by Black Sabbath, but I decided instead I'm going to pick something a lot more obscure by Iron Maiden's first vocalist, Paul Di'Anno. The first thing he did after he left Iron Maiden is a band that's just his last name, Di'Anno. Back at the time, I ended up importing the record from Europe because I could not find anywhere to listen to this record online. Like, there were no torrents. YouTube wasn't really a thing yet, so it wasn't on there to pirate. So I had to import it from England and then wait like 2 weeks for it to show up. And I got there and I put it on my record player, and we will talk more about that next time.
Yeah, so we will see you next time. A lot of us, like going through our record collection, we're going to do weird shit we found in record stores a lot of the time, which is a lot of fun. And like a lot of my record buying days was when you could get the name of this band is Talking Heads from Half Price Books for $12. And that is how I liked buying records. And I like it that more people are listening to vinyl now, don't get me wrong, but it used to be so much cheaper.
Right, yeah. My collection's very similar. I picked up most of them back when CDs were still the main medium before streaming took off. So it was easy to find like pretty much any album I wanted for a couple of bucks. Like sometimes you go into a shop and you see like The Wall for fucking $25, which is normal now, but back then you'd be like, I can find The Wall in another record shop for like $10. Yeah, it's just like I felt like that with retro video games too. Like it was fun to find retro video games until YouTube like started shining a light on retro video games, and then now you want to play some like Nintendo game and it's like fucking $75, so it's not really fun to collect anymore. And I feel like it's kind of gone that way with records. Like you can still kind of find some gems in some certain shops, but a lot of places mark their stuff up way too high, I feel like.
I stopped record shopping as much as I used to when I got to the point where I was seeing like, like I have this album on CD, maybe I should get the vinyl version just to have both. And then no, this is $40.
Right, yeah. Like I'll pay $25 for an album that I really like, especially if it's brand new. Like I don't think I'd really pay $25 for a used vinyl unless it was like a record that somebody kept in their collection and never played or something, like it's like new or something. But it was a lot more fun to just walk into a shop and be like, oh, here's Dark Side of the Moon for $6. It's a little beat up, but
yeah,
it's still cool,
still good.
Yeah.
It's classic for a reason.
Yeah.
And it being beat up makes it look like I'm the one who has loved this particular copy for over the decades.
Yeah, it's like a relic guitar, except Time relicked it instead of some guy in a shop.
If you really want me to go after one of your guitars with a screwdriver to make it look older and more beat up than it is, I can do that.
Yeah, that's a service we offer. Someday we're going to set up a Patreon, and there's going to be a relicking your guitar tier, and you'll just ship your guitar to us, and all of the Alliterates will attack it with screwdrivers.
We cannot promise you how long it will take to get back either.
Nope.
Maybe it will show up in one of our live videos before we send it back to you.
Yeah.
You can say.
You may never get it back. We might just end up liking it, so we'll attack it with screwdrivers and then keep it.
All right, on that note, I'm Dave.
And I'm Steve.
And this has been Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve. Keep on rocking in the free world. I will come up with a better sign-off that isn't just ripping off Neil Young at some point.
I was thinking Nardwar. Doot, doodaloot, doot.
Doot, doot.
Hey, everyone. Future Steve here. In our excitement, we completely forgot to do our pluggables. So, here I am at 1:30 in the morning. I should be sleeping, and instead I'm here editing because I am insane. So, now that you've listened to this episode, please go check out our music. Dave and I are both in a band called The Alliterates. It's kind of like a post-punk band. If you like bands like Killing Joke, you'll definitely want to check it out. If you like this Talking Heads record, you might want to check out our experimental group, Lucid Fugue. We've done a bunch of weird, interesting experiments with that one. We've got a full length and an EP out, as well as a live single. We were both in a band called Gong Farmer. I never recorded with them, but they did release an album, and you can find all that information on my website, killrockmusic.com. It's KILRAVOCK music.com. It's named after a Scottish castle. I was looking for a name of my project, and that was shockingly not taken by a black metal band in the middle of Eastern Europe. So, anyway, best way to support us, check out our music, and we'll catch you next time.
Check.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to our second attempts at talking about this album. Because,
technical difficulties.
Yeah, more like I didn't switch the input difficulties. But anyway, welcome to Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve. I'm Steve.
And I'm Dave.
And today we're going to be talking about Paul Di'Anno's first post-Iron Maiden solo album, Di'Anno, released in 1984. Dave, how familiar are you with Paul Di'Anno?
I am familiar with those first two Iron Maiden records, more with the first one because I think it's a better record. But yeah, that's about the extent of my Paul Di'Anno knowledge.
Now, when I discovered this album, it's because this would have been back in, I want to say, 2003, 2004, when I first started getting into Iron Maiden. And I'd purchased, I think at this point I'd probably gotten all of the Iron Maiden records. So I was looking for solo stuff, and I bought all of Bruce Dickinson's stuff. And I was looking to see if he had anything else, because I think he's a really good singer. I thought he fit early Iron Maiden very well. We were talking about it off microphone earlier. I think we both wish there was more Paul Di'Anno in the world.
Yeah, I wish I like the Bruce Dickinson albums quite a bit. And even though there's only one Paul Di'Anno album I really liked, I would have liked to have seen like a couple more albums like that first one, like maybe like 3 or 4 albums like that first one. And then if that meant that we would have to wait a few years for Run to the Hills or The Trooper, so be it.
Yeah, and I think he would have been capable of singing the songs on Number of the Beast. I hear people say that they wanted to get a different singer because they didn't think he fit the style of music, but I thought Killers was reasonably close to the music on A Number of the Beast. So I think it was more a personality difference than, I think, a creative difference.
Although, didn't Bruce write a lot of the lyrics, or was that a little after Number of the Beast?
He did. So it wouldn't have been the same record, but I think Steve Harris wrote probably about half the record, if not more.
Okay.
Bruce wasn't officially credited on that because he still had record label stuff due to his previous band, Samson, which... that gives you a preview to a future episode. I'm going to bring a Samson record in. Anyway, back to Di'Anno. So this record, I was probably looking at his Metal Archives lineup, and I was able to find his band Battlezone pretty easily. They released 3 albums. 2 of them in the 80s sounded more like the new wave of British heavy metal style that you'd probably expect from him. Not really Iron Maiden, not up to that same caliber, but probably, B tier maybe. And then he was also in a mid-paced metal band called Killers, which obviously named after his Iron Maiden record. And that one was probably the best thing he's done after Iron Maiden. Probably something we might even look into someday. This one, I could not find any information on it. I couldn't find a torrent of it. This was like kind of pre-YouTube, so nobody like ripped it and put it online. Streaming wasn't really a thing yet. So the only way I was able to get a hold of this record back then was to import it from England, and it was surprisingly cheap. I thought something that rare would have been, like $50, but I don't remember what I spent on this at the time. But I mean, I was still in high school and living in my parents' house. So I probably didn't spend more than like $10 on this.
So when we put it on, are we going to accidentally summon a Kandarian demon who will possess the dead and torment us, like in the movie Evil Dead?
Well, since I've listened to this record since I bought it, I assume that would have happened when I first played it. But I mean,
okay.
It was in the same collection as a number of heavy metal records, so maybe it got possessed by the Opeth record sitting under it. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. We'll find out.
I don't want to spoil what this album sounds like because I like legit want your reaction to it. But it's like, if I was to ask you what you think Paul Di'Anno would do post Iron Maiden, what would you imagine it to be?
Kind of like scuzzy dirtbag thrash, like the kind of thing that you could listen to if you had a jean jacket on with some vomit stains on it and were like bumming beers off of the table at the bar that had already left and had a half finished room temperature pitcher and you didn't want to pay for anything, like like that general vibe. The scuzzy dirtbag thrash that I associate with the band that wrote The Prowler, not necessarily the band that wrote Run to the Hills.
Well, you kind of described his 90s career, but this album, we'll put it on and we'll when we come back, we'll see how close you got. But before we do that, I'm going to talk a bit about the lineup on here. Besides the drummer, Dave Irving, who is separate from the band, so I don't think he was even in the band. I wonder if they just got him as a session guy because they list it and then it just says Dave Irving played the drums on the album. So,
or maybe he was in the band and he quit while recording.
Yeah, it must have been something like that. But I was looking up on his Discogs profile, and he had a career post this album, but everybody else, nothing. The only credits are this album, the single for this album, and the live recording. I think they put out like a video to promote this. There's 2 guitar players, Lee Slater and PJ Ward, Kevin Brown on bass, Mark Venables on keyboard, and obviously Paul Di'Anno, the Iron Man himself. Well, he's not an Iron Maiden because he's
Yeah.
The album cover shows it looks like a gang of British vagrants are getting ready to come stab you with a switchblade, I think.
Yeah, this looks like the kind of guys who would mug you in a British 80s movie, not an American 80s movie. They don't look like the Stephen King villains that are bullies that nearly kill children. The kind of people who try to mug you in a British 80s movie and end up stabbing you, even though there is nothing in the scene that indicates it will escalate to that point.
Also, since there's no information on it, I don't know who any of these guys are. So I try to picture what genre they all do based on how they look. Like the guy with just the mustache, I assume, is the keyboard player.
Yeah, the guy with just the mustache does look like the power ballad kind of metal guy a little bit to me. The guy, I'm gonna assume the guy in the middle is Di'Anno.
Yep,
he's got kind of like the coveralls, so he has kind of like that tough working class thing going. The guy next to him, I don't know, he looks like a new wave guy to me, kind of. And then the guy on the far end,
I bet these two are the two on the right are the guitar players, and I bet you the guy on the very left is the bass player.
Yeah, yeah.
We have no way, because I can't find any information about these guys, so I don't know.
Is the live recording? Is there a video of it, or?
Oh yeah, I guess we could figure out based on that. So I mean, we're not going to right now. But
yeah. So the drummer's not on the cover either, and he's not credited.
There's 6 people, but there's only 5 people pictured. So
yeah. So so that could either mean that he was a session drummer or that he was fired partway through recording. So
it really could be either, or maybe it was a Spinal Tap thing. Maybe he just spontaneously combusted.
Yeah,
maybe they all spontaneously combusted, and that's why only Paul's around. Because these days he's got to do the shows in a wheelchair. So maybe he was gonna spontaneously combust and it didn't happen. So.
We're going to find out that some of these guys took on stage names and are members of Killers or something. But yeah.
Well, all right. Well, we're going to dive into 1984's Di'Anno album, and we'll come back and give you our impressions of side 1. Hey everyone, Future Steve here. Just a slight correction. We didn't really get any of that right about the people on the front cover. We looked at the live video, and it turns out that we were about 50% wrong, I think. So make fun of us for that. Thanks.
I wasn't expecting it to sound like John Bon Jovi.
Well, Dave, I think you probably have a very good idea how I was feeling in 2004 when I waited for this album for 2 weeks to show up at my house, and I was expecting Iron Maiden or Killers Part 3 and got this.
This had to have been a stab at commercial success because they just needed to pay their rent or something, because I think we didn't really talk about the cover, we did to some degree, but there is one detail that we have talked about in previous episodes that we neglected to mention this time, and that is that the photo on the cover is exactly the same on the front and on the back, and the cardboard that the LP was in is the flimsiest cardboard I have ever handled for a record. This is
no insert. Maybe it came with one, but
I'm surprised this made it across the ocean.
Yeah, so
I didn't know he was capable of making something that sounded like Styx. There were a few times.
Sound like Styx.
There were a few times when I thought there were some cool guitar parts buried beneath some things. Sometimes that would come out. Then sometimes it'd be kind of like the chugging rhythm guitar with. I didn't like the synth sound in any of it, but in the less bad moments, I was like, okay, this is like a third-rate Cars thing they're going for maybe. And then
he's a very good synth player, but
yeah, I'm not going to critique his technique.
A good sound.
Yeah, this sounded just like generic '80s power ballad patches.
Yeah, it's like a Casio like stock setting or something.
I guess we had to eventually get to something we wouldn't like. So, that is what it is. I'm glad I discovered this existed at least.
And that's why I picked it. It's like, it's not good, but it's interesting, I think.
Yeah, like
The Room. Like The Room is a very interesting movie, but
and
I wouldn't say it's good.
And the music sounds like the kind of music that might be played during a sex scene in The Room.
Yeah. Well, and when we were talking about Headless Cross, there were a few moments that you called like 80s exercise montage moments, and this whole album is an 80s exercise montage moment. So.
Yeah. It was like either like a training montage for like a sports movie, or it is a training montage for one of those dozens of low budget ninja movies that came out in like from 88 to about 92 that I watch ironically a lot because they're funny to like crack a six pack and laugh through. But yeah, this isn't what I was expecting from Paul Di'Anno. This is
not what I was expecting either. Before we move on to side B, I want to talk about a few interesting facts. Unfortunately, I can't find any information about this album. I think Di'Anno, I assume he's embarrassed by this album because nobody's brought it up in interviews to him. He's never like talked about it. I don't know if he's done like a biography or anything, but I couldn't find any like quotes about this.
He has a condition for interviewers that they don't bring up this album, maybe,
or maybe just nobody knows about it. But like I couldn't even find any like promo interviews from the time. There's the one live show I can find on YouTube, which we might check out a few tracks from that just to see what that's like. But otherwise, he made this album. Sounds like he tried to promote it. Sounds like he was trying to get a Bon Jovi paycheck, and it didn't work out because, I mean, all the musicians on this album, I'd say, are very good.
Yeah, they're competent.
Yeah, and I would even say if this album maybe was mixed differently and the keyboard player chose something different, like, maybe like a Deep Purple style organ or something, I would probably be more interested in this. I think at that point it sounded more like Whitesnake, which I think is one of the better like hair bands.
I looked up this album on Wikipedia, because I was trying to figure out what the fuck I was listening to, and they listed the genre as soft rock, hard rock. So I think that means that it is, as Nirvana put it before they broke into territorial pissings, moderate rock.
Yeah, I think moderate rock would be the best way to describe this. It's like if Kiss made every song Beth.
Yeah. and then like they closed it out with a ballad that was way too long, like 6 minutes long.
Yeah. Like, I think that song had more of the most interesting moments, but it was just too long. Two other facts I want to bring up before we move on to side two. I can't find anything to corroborate this, but somebody said in the comments for the YouTube bootleg of this that this album went platinum in Japan. I could see that. This really does like sound like something that you'd hear in like I don't know, like a Sonic the Hedgehog like J-pop soundtrack or something.
This album reeks of Big in Japan.
Yeah,
not in a cool cheap trick way, but yeah.
And it had a way cooler name over in Japan, Two Swimmers and a Bag of Jockeys, which was intended as a tribute to their friend and ex-drummer Mark Stewart. I guess that answers the question. He just didn't stay in the band.
But yeah, Mark Stewart has a thanks to on the back, but not a drum credit. So I think they finished it with a studio drummer.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe he was just helping out or something. So
yeah,
probably Paul Di'Anno and Mark Stewart are probably still cool, I'd imagine. Probably haven't seen each other since this album.
Probably, yeah.
Album reached number 105 on the UK album charts. I guess it didn't chart in America.
105 isn't, that's not even the Hot 100. That's not enough to leave a lasting impact.
Oh, and the last interesting fact that I'm going to bring up before side B is Heart User. The second track on here was written by Terry Britton and Sue Schifrin. Terry Britton being a singer-songwriter and record producer who has written songs for Tina Turner, Cliff Richard, Olivia Newton-John, Status Quo, Michael Jackson, and others. So that kind of tells you they were really trying to get Di'Anno on the John Bon Jovi.
John Bon Jovi. Yeah. I like Bon John Bovi. Yeah.
Bon John Bovi. I guess the biggest thing I wonder about this is, was this Di'Anno's idea, or was this like a record company idea? Were they like, hey, you're out Iron Maiden, you want to make some bucks? Or was he just like, I really want to make moderate rock?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, considering everything he's done since then, it seems like he really needed to pay rent.
Yeah, because after this, Battlezone has a bit more of a glam edge. Like, it kind of reminds me of the first Def Leppard album, which is our friend Pete's favorite band.
Yes.
And
you have heard it here. Pete loves Def Leppard.
Yes. So much so that he insisted that the record was behind him at practice yesterday.
Yes.
All right, so I know you're really looking forward to seeing if they can bring this together on side B. So what do you think? You think they're going to bring it around?
No, but I'm going to make a prediction that there is going to, like, I have been giving each song a chance as it goes for some reason. Like, I have in the opening notes been like, okay, I'm ready. Turn this around, do something for me, and it has so far then pivoted to the most hilarious cheat. Like, we laughed out loud multiple times through this, but I'm going to predict there's
the beginning of I think it was the runner. We were both laughing. I think I was crying so hard because it sounded like the opening of like at the beginning of a VHS tape when they're like, check out our upcoming releases. Like, it just sounded like promo music.
But I'm going to predict like that one of the back half of the last side is going to have a song I like.
Well, let's see. We got, Razor Edge has a really cool song title. So
yeah, or it could be.
I think Lady Heartbreak's probably going to be another fucking ballad.
Probably is, yeah.
Well, it's funny because you look at the titles like Flaming Heart and Heart User both sound like pop songs, but like The Runner and Tales of the Unexpected both sound like Iron Maiden song titles.
Yeah, the lyrics were incredibly generic, by the way.
Yeah,
which isn't something I can say about like Iron Maiden. Like Iron Maiden, they even before Bruce Dickinson, they went kind of weird for their song topics, and then they didn't just do like the most basic ass generic rhymes. There was nothing noteworthy about any of the lyrics.
Yeah, it's all cheesy love songs, which I personally I don't like love songs unless they're like unique. Like I typo negative stab at a love song I think is good. But,
yeah, there's a handful of love songs I like, but yeah, for the most part.
Well, and like one other thing, it's this doesn't seem like an album that like two metal and punk dudes get around, drink beer, and listen to.
No.
And at the same time, I don't see myself bringing a date home and being like, "Oh yeah, I want to turn on the charm here. Let's put on some Heart User."
Bring on the Runner and listen to Paul Di'Anno talk about trying your best.
All right, this is side B. We'll see you all here in a little bit. And we are back from side B of Di'Anno's 1984 self-titled record. David, what did you think of side B?
Okay. It did get better. The very first song I hated just as much as side one.
We both audibly laughed when it was the same like cheesy like 80s PSA like keyboard sound.
But yeah, and then it got into like it didn't turn into something I would regularly listen to, but the remaining 4 tracks were fine. There were moments when it let like the galloping rhythm guitar like be more prominent in the mix and not just get buried under the cheesy synth or the pointless lead guitar noodling. And it was there were points that I actually liked. And then the names weren't even doing it any favor. Like, I was expecting Lady Heartbreak to be the worst ballad of all time, but no, it was a fine song.
Starting with Bright Lights, the album, I think, shifted more into what I would call more of a glam rock direction. I mean, it was still like the glam metal sound, but the song structures themselves, like I could see like what this album makes me think is it's too bad that Paul Di'Anno didn't do like a New York Dolls style album rather than this, because I could totally see him like rocking that kind of style. Because especially on Antigua, that song I thought sounded like like something you'd hear in like late 70s glam rock. And also with Road Rat, I think, which was probably the best song on the record. Yeah,
album closer is the best song. It was the complete opposite of what the beginning of the album was.
Yes, like if you ever... This album is actually available now. Like back in the day, I couldn't find it easily, but this is actually on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Music and all that. So it's like if you want to check this out of curiosity, and say you're more like a Iron Maiden fan, I guess, I'd say start with Bright Lights. But if you're like a Bon Jovi or like a White Snake or a Def Leppard fan, you'd probably like this whole album.
Yeah. One thing that I think is funny is I think the first side was the soft rock side and the second one was the hard rock side. So that's why the Wikipedia article had soft rock, hard rock. It was describing the two different sides of the record.
And that really fits well with our name. You made a comment last time, and we'll kind of get to test this theory. Side B typically is weaker, but in this case, side B I'd say was much stronger.
Yeah, there were songs that I wouldn't instantly flip the radio away from on the second side.
Yeah, and like Road Rat. I mean, it's like, Mom, can we have turbo? And she's like, we have turbo at home.
Yeah. I am glad I listened to the whole thing because that was interesting and not anything I would have guessed as being part of Paul Di'Anno's career.
Yeah, it's interesting to bring this out to, not only like show to somebody else and analyze, but, when I got this, I don't think I really gave it much of a chance. Because I barely remembered side 2, so listening to this and actually like sitting down and analyzing it, made me. It was an interesting experience. Certainly not something that either of us. I doubt you're going to be adding Heart User to your Spotify playlist. But.
Yeah, no. One thing that it did make me wonder is I wonder if it was because of a lot of stuff like this that a lot of heavy metal became so anti-keyboard for a while.
Yeah, because I remember it was a bit of a controversy when Iron Maiden started using it on Somewhere in Time, and Judas Priest used it on the Turbo album. When you hear keyboards in metal, you think of the more of the glam metal type stuff.
Final Countdown.
yeah, exactly. Although I unironically love the Final Countdown.
Although there's a degree to which, like nowadays, people think of a lot of the industrial metal from like the 90s used a lot of keyboards.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's been a shift since then, but
yeah, I think there's more of it now. I mean, back in the 80s, I think even when keyboards were really prominent, even like the bigger bands just shoved the keyboard player off stage for some reason because there was a perception that it wasn't cool. But
yeah,
I don't know. For me, it's like, I don't know. John Lord is my favorite keyboard player. And I wish there were more bands that utilize an organ player like he played organ.
Yeah, and then there's also a degree to which a lot of this kind of stuff is shove a technically competent like piano or organ player behind a synthesizer and don't really teach them about how to do anything besides use like the basic patches and not like really catch the versatility, like the weird sound shit you can get with the synthesizer. Like, we are recording this on the same day that we did the previous episode when we listened to Talking Heads, who like figured out a lot of like really creative and interesting synthesizer stuff. And so to hear like the effort that was put into Talking Heads with help from Brian Eno to capture really certain moods and like the small tweaks you can make to make big differences in sound. Just to hear someone be like, okay, I just press the keys and play makes a really big difference in like how well the instrument can be used.
Yeah, I thought the keyboard player on this album was very good. There were moments, especially, I almost wonder because on the first side, it seemed like he just took a Casio keyboard and plugged it in and went. But on the second side, he was using a lot less generic of patches, I'd say. Things that were a bit more interesting.
And then like more just general piano too, which makes me think, hey, maybe he was just a piano player who was doing synthesizers because it was the style at the time.
Hey everyone, Future Steve here. So we're about to talk a bit about how this album doesn't seem to be talked about, but since then I have since found quotes about this from his autobiography that he did indeed release called The Beast. And when he talks about this album in that, he said that he put the band together because he wanted to do something that he didn't think his fans would expect. So he left Iron Maiden, so he wanted to do basically what he probably considered to be the exact opposite of Iron Maiden. He was into the AOR bands at the time, and he wanted to explore that sound. So when we talk about whether or not this was a record experiment or not, it doesn't seem to be. It looks like this was all a Paul Di'Anno idea, and it just didn't pan out. So anyway, I probably should have looked that up before we talked about it, but what do I look like? A guy that's not lazy? Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled podcast. There's no information about any of these guys, so I'd be curious to hear what the experience for this record is, because it's strange, because I think Di'Anno's pretty much disowned it,
or he just doesn't mention it anymore.
Yeah, well, like I said, I can't even find interviews of him talking about it at the time, so I wonder if they did it. They played like one live show, and then they're like, all right, we're done. We didn't get John Bon Jovi money, so off to our next thing. But.
Yeah.
And then, after this, Di'Anno went on to do Battle Zone, which is much better. I'd say that one has some more... It has some, like, 80s glam moments, but it's much more like... I'd probably say maybe more like heavier than Def Leppard's first album. But, yeah, so that was Di'Anno. If... anybody wants to listen to it, it's out there now. You can listen to it. Paul doesn't perform any songs off of it. He pretty much just does Iron Maiden cover songs anymore. But
yeah,
the record is still cheap, surprisingly. When I was looking through the Discogs page, I think I saw one for like $10. So
nice.
You can own the flimsiest record jacket in history, put out by FM Records. And there's a telephone number on here.
It's probably been disconnected.
You call it like, oh, it's Paul Di'Anno himself. All right,
Paul, what were you thinking when you wrote?
Look, I just wanted drugs, okay?
Yeah.
All right, well, that was Di'Anno. Next time, I'll probably pick something enjoyable rather than interesting. Do you have anything in mind for your next one?
Oh, yeah. Next, I am going to do the UK version of The Clash's self-titled debut from '77.
All right, well, and I hear you have an interesting story to go along with that one. So
I do, yeah.
Everybody will want to tune in for that one. So, well, all right, well, that was that. So everybody go listen to Di'Anno, and then let us know in the comments how much you loved it.
Yep, catch you on the flip side. Bam, nailed it, catchphrase. Hello, and welcome to Side 1, Side B, with Dave and Steve. I'm Dave.
And I'm Steve.
And today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite bands and their debut album. Steve, what do you know about The Clash?
The Clash, I know it's a punk band from across the way. Big fan of their song Career Opportunities. I'm actually thinking about covering it as a B-side for my my solo project. I'm going to release a series of singles, and then I'm going to have like a work-related cover paired with the single, so I can trick people into listening to my song, hopefully. And I was thinking about doing like a thrashy version of that, or a doomy version of that. So,
well, good news that I chose this album, because
I know, I'm stoked.
Yeah, this is the one that it's on. This is This is The Clash's debut album, The Clash, that came out in 1977. It is the UK version specifically, so we'll talk about the difference between the US and the UK edition later in the podcast. But yeah, this is their debut album that came out in 1977 alongside, like a bunch of punk albums, like in a bunch of first punk albums. This was a really big statement in like their whole career. This is their rawest, most punky album, and it's their only album with their original drummer, Terry Chimes. But yeah, The Clash were, you probably know all this, but they were Joe Strummer, Mick Jones, Paul Simonon, and at this point, Terry Chimes, but later on...
Tory Crimes.
Yeah, they got his name wrong on the on the sleeve.
Honestly, like, if they're gonna get somebody's name wrong, like Tory Crimes is kind of a badass stage name.
Yeah, and this is the only the studio album that he's in. But there is a point later when they'd fired Topper for being on too much heroin to tour, where they brought Terry back. So there's like no bad blood. I just don't think Terry wanted to be a drummer in a band because he stopped doing music after the early 80s, like entirely. I think he's like a lawyer now or something.
To link this up with Black Sabbath, Terry Chimes actually did a couple of makeup shows with Black Sabbath at one point. While we're listening, I'm going to look up the details on that because I don't remember enough to talk about it right now. Is there anything else that we should talk about before we move on?
This is the most typically punk album of The Clash. I think I said that a little earlier, but like as they kind of kept going, they let their other influences creep in, and they do kind of let them creep in a little bit on here. As their career kept going, they started incorporating more like rockabilly and reggae, even gospel in one song. But this is just them at their most unfiltered, most furious. This was them when they were playing alongside the Sex Pistols because they hadn't stopped getting along with Johnny Rotten yet.
That reminds me, I was looking at some articles and saw that Lemmy for some reason doesn't like The Clash. It was like a grunge like clickbait video, and they were talking about it, and he's like, oh yeah, I thought he said like The Clash were manufactured or something along those lines.
A lot of people, that was kind of a common criticism of them. Like a lot of people, like their manager Bernie Rhodes was trying to do the same thing that Malcolm McLaren was trying to do with the Sex Pistols, and
so basically the same criticism.
Yeah, it's basically the same criticism that's leveled at the Sex Pistols. The Clash managed to fire Bernie at one point, so I think it's a little less founded for them, although they brought him back. We're going to do Combat Rock at some point, and we'll talk about the whole fraught relationship with Bernie Rhodes at that point. But yeah, he's on board at this point. Bernie was gone by the time they did their best-known album, London Calling. And then too many world tours, they had to get a manager again and chose the worst person they could have by bringing back their old one. But that is a long story. It's very well documented.
Yeah, the same thing happened to Sabbath. The guy that ripped him off, he just ended up going back to him because I don't know, because he didn't. I don't understand why you'd do that after somebody ripped you off so bad. But
and then I think Lemmy was cool with a lot of like the smaller punk bands, like he hung out with them a lot, and a lot of when the Clash was huge, kind of resented them for being so successful, which I don't blame them necessarily. And so like there were accusations of selling out. It's punk scenes never changed. Like successful bands get hated and other bands get mad about it, and there's rivalries and different people feel they have to take sides. I can see Lemmy taking like the Damned or the Buzzcocks side, and any kind of like rivalry that any of these bands might have had at one point. So
yeah, well, that doesn't take away any of Lemmy's coolness, in my opinion. He's kind of an old grouch, but he's our old grouch.
Yeah, and I don't need every band that I like to have their members like each other, so, or even like themselves, like the other members of their bands.
Yeah, their beefs aren't our beefs. I see people do that all the time, like the Metallica versus Megadeth thing. I'm like, it's been like 50 years. I think they're over it.
Yeah, I think they brought in Mustaine to kind of reason with them during, what was that documentary, Some Kind of Monster?
Yeah, there was a scene where they did a therapy session with, it was just Lars and Dave like basically opened up about like how hurtful it was to be kicked out the way he was, and then he got mad at him because he didn't want him to put it in the documentary, but they ended up putting it in there. Although I'm kind of like, Dave, that's the most human I have ever seen you.
Yeah.
So the rivalries between bands, sometimes the fans just take it to such an extreme that I don't understand sometimes.
Yeah, it's a parasocial relationship type thing.
True.
Anyway, yeah, this is the Clash's debut album. Some people will say this is their best album. I don't think I agree with that, but it is a great album. It is the second best album of theirs.
Well, all right. I'm looking forward to this, so we'll be back after we listen to side one.
All right, that was 8 songs. Last couple ones that we've done, each side is like 4 songs, so that was double the amount of songs for a side. Steve, what did you think?
Well, that's kind of the nice thing about punk is you get twice the songs for the same amount as you get on like a metal record.
Exactly, it's a bargain unless you're like in a jukebox or on iTunes paying by the song. But yeah.
If you're a Doom fan like me, it's like you probably get like 2 or 3 songs per side.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought it was fantastic. This is absolutely the kind of punk that I'm into. Is I guess the more street punk? Is that a good way to put it?
At this point, yeah, they definitely weren't street as they went forward and got access to better studios. But yeah, this one is like lower fidelity than their later stuff, and then a lot of their contemporaries just kind of rough, scrappy. You can't really hear a lot in the overdubs. You hear them playing, and you just yeah.
My biggest criticism usually of punk is a lot of it is poorly produced. And this was very well produced, I feel like. I can see this is a remastered version, so I don't know how like an original pressing would stack up, but this one sounds great.
Yeah, it's probably similar. So the funny thing about how this is a repressing is I said that it was the UK version, and it's not an import. Mm-hmm. That was actually pressed here in Omaha.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there weren't any American pressings of the UK version until like the 2000s at some point when Drastic Plastic Records got the rights to do the UK pressing of the Clash's debut. So that is from Drastic Plastic. Rest in peace.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Track opener, Janie Jones, one of their best songs that they ever did. Just a fantastic, energetic opener. Just yeah, an amazing song. Second track, Remote Control, was a song they don't like anymore or they didn't like even shortly after this album because the label released it as a single and they didn't want it as a single, and so they kind of decided they hated the song in retrospect. It's funny. We'll get into that later when we get into the US version. But yeah, that's that one. And then
I'm so bored with the USA.
Yeah, that was a breakup song that Mick Jones had written on his own before he and Joe Strummer got together. And then when he was playing it for Joe, Mick was, singing the chorus with "I'm so bored with you," and then Strummer was S.A. You can really hear the difference between their vocal styles on that one too. Jones was the better singer, but Joe Strummer was the one who sang lead on most songs. And he was also Joe Strummer was the veteran musician. He had been in a band that had played in front of people before at this point and had busked on the street a lot otherwise too. He was slightly older and embarrassed by it and tried to hide it from the band, but we are both a lot older than he was at that time. Yeah. The UK punk scene at the time was obsessed with being young, and it was kind of weird in retrospect, but hey, it created a lot of vital music, and a lot of people just we got to do this now rather than learn more chords. We just play the way we can because we're going to be old soon and won't matter anymore.
I remember when I was like 18, I would get anxious about getting older because I feel like getting older, means that's less time for me to release like music. And I realized, wait, I'm getting older and writing better music because I have years of experience. So
yeah, it really explains like the apocalyptic nature of like a lot of like early UK punk. It's just like they felt the world was ending and had to get their stuff out right away, and an obsession with like being young was a big part of that. White Riot, the next track, that was their first single. Interesting version of that song is still on the US version, but the version they have on the US version is the single version, which is almost exactly the same, except they replaced the count in with police sirens. So I like this version better. Like they cleaned up the production a little bit on the US version too, and it's like this is this one's rawer, more interesting.
When I was reading about the US version on Wikipedia, media, I was like, oh man, they absolutely butchered the album.
They did. It's a good album, but it's a different album still. It's like my all-time favorite Clash song is one that, was a non-album single that they ended up putting on the US album, but it's like this, there's an immediacy to this one that really gets kind of ruined with the US version. The US version is the version I have on CD, so the one that I listened to in my car a whole lot before I even got this version, so it's like I'm very familiar with it and I still love it, but this is the better way to present these songs, in my opinion. Hate and War, it's a good song. I like the interplay between Jones and Strummer's singing style. You can hear Jones be the good singer and Joe Strummer just the righteous fury that he has going with that one.
That one's a great one.
What's My Name? Most notable thing about that one is there's another songwriter on it, which is Keith Levine. Keith Levine was an early member of the band when they started off as a 3-guitar band, which I don't think would have worked, but Keith Levine was an amazing guitarist. He would go on to be a founding member of Public Image Limited, which was John Lydon's band when he stopped being Johnny Rotten in the Sex Pistols. Well, he left before they broke up, but when he was doing like his weird experimental post-punk stuff, Keith Levine was his guitarist, and maybe that's why there was a rivalry eventually between Lydon and the Clash, because Keith Levine didn't exactly leave on good terms.
Yeah, that could definitely be part of it.
Yeah. Deny is just a cool song. I don't think there's a lot notable about it. It's one of the songs that gets omitted from the US version, which is sad. I think I like the harmonies. London's Burning, good stomper, all-time classic.
Definitely a good one to end the side on.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this before like we usually have been, but what do you think of the album art?
Perfect. Definitely embodies what you get with the package, I feel like.
Yeah.
You got a picture of the band up front here, looking all intimidating, and then you turn it around and, it's Cops.
Yep. Yeah, it's a 3-piece on the cover because by the time the album was released, Terry Chimes had quit the band. So
don't you mean Tory Crimes?
Tory Crimes had quit the band, so it was just the 3 of them by that point, and then they replaced him pretty quickly. But they didn't have the new drummer quite ready yet at that point, so it's just like, okay, the 3 of us that are on this record, get it done, standing in an alley. White Riot is an interesting song, to circle back to it, in that it was. They saw a protest in London by a bunch of black citizens, and they were like, this is good. People are standing up for their rights and demanding them. Why don't white people ever do this?
Yeah. I think that's a question we should all be asking right now.
Yeah, and it talks about a lot of the it wasn't just the black citizens, but like a lot of the Central Asian, like a lot of the ethnic minorities who had moved to London at that point were more willing to stand up and fight for their rights, while white people were afraid to go to jail. That's even addressed directly in the song. Nobody wants to go to jail. Yeah. And so it's about just like the kind of the cowardice that you develop when you have more to lose,
right? Yeah.
By having a slightly more privileged position than the people who are absolutely eating shit in society.
Yeah, they want to keep a lower class to keep the middle class in line.
Yeah, that's how slavery developed in the first place. Create an underclass so that the people who weren't mistreated quite as much would have other people to hate rather than the people who were oppressing them.
I mean, we're not really that different from serfs if you think about it.
No. Yeah, that was the first side of the album. A lot of songs, a lot of short songs. Like, I think the longest one is like 3 minutes. Most of them are like a minute and a half.
Before we move on to the next side, I got a Tory crime story here. So there was a connection with Black Sabbath that we talked about earlier. So I looked it up, and he joined the band for the Eternal Idol tour, and that was the album before the one that we listened to a few weeks ago. The reason he joined the band is because the drummer they had at the time had political objections over them playing in Sun City in apartheid South Africa. So Tony, probably coked up out of his mind, was like, was told by his manager, it's like, yeah, it's in South Africa, but it's not like in South Africa, So Tony's like, whoa, okay, all right. And then, that's what I imagine. He might just be covering his ass with that story, because it's like, well, if your drummer quit over political reasons, like, didn't you look into that?
It's so funny that they got the original drummer from the most left-wing political punk band. Well, not the most by that point, but of the early ones, Joe Strummer absolutely probably been mad when he learned that that Terry went and played in apartheid South Africa.
Yeah.
The guy whose band would go on to make an album called Sandinista that has a song about CIA assassinations, and yeah.
I wonder if Terry's ever talked about that. I'm gonna look it up when we're listening to side B.
Yeah, that's gonna be so great.
But yeah, so we got a connection to my favorite band there, and then it was because they were doing something kind of unethical. So
it's just so funny they got someone from the Clash to do it. Oh, and I was wrong. Terry didn't become a lawyer. I looked it up. He became a chiropractor.
Ah, okay.
Which is funnier.
Chiropractor, hard word to spell.
Yes.
All right, were you ready to move on to side B?
Yes.
All right, we'll be back. And we're back.
Okay, yeah. That was side 2. I think my 2 favorite songs on the album are on side 2. Maybe my 3 favorite.
Yeah, I gotta say, this album I think is all bangers. I don't think there was a single song on here I didn't like.
Yeah, they're all great. I think my favorite song was the album closer, Garageland. I don't think that there's any... Our Garage, for our friends across the pond. I don't think there is any song that better encapsulates like that whole here's a chord, here's another chord, here's another chord, now go start a band like idea better than that one. Just like that verse that's the truth is only known by gutter snipes, that has that line, and then the outro where Joe just starts kind of going on a tangent, like 22 singers, 1 microphone. Just like that's like the scrappy go do this yourself, go make this spirit that's really, really perfect. My other 2 favorites off of this side are Career Opportunities, obviously, all-time classic, great anti-work song.
And that's my favorite one on this album because it's one of those songs that just perfectly explains how I've felt and sometimes still feel in the workforce, because it's basically like you have opportunities to get to so-called good jobs, but it's still like it's serving tea to the so-called important people, and if you don't like that, well, you go down the loading dock and work with the workers,
Yeah, and then my other one, I liked the 6-minute long reggae cover. I think that was like a really cool change of pace, and like putting it so near the end of the whole thing was just kind of a way to kind of calm down and mellow out between like all the like fast and furious 2-minute songs. It was just like a nice relaxing song about how the police and the criminals are equally dangerous to us normal people.
But in a lot of ways, the police are just another gang in this world, and they're just sanctioned by the state.
Yeah, state-run gangs. And then the other 3 songs are all good. Here, I liked how much they changed. Like Protex Blue, that one's great. That one's about condoms, and like Mick yelling "Johnny, Johnny" at the end was really funny. Yeah, and then 48 Hours. Yeah, just a fun, like quick, stompy song. And then Cheat changed a lot for a 2-minute song. Like there was like, okay, yeah, I'm really liking this. Oh, this other thing that's coming in here, that's really interesting. This is great. Okay, here's the solo. Oh, and then here's this. Yeah, it was just like so many ideas crammed into a 2-minute song that it didn't feel like underdeveloped in any way. It was just like, we're just going to play this really fast and dump all these good ideas in one song, which like how strong Cheat, Protex Blue, and 48 Hours are really makes me sad that those are 3 of the songs that get cut for the US version. So like I did not hear them until I got a very comprehensive compilation that had a bunch of like deleted tracks and stuff on it. So like that was the version of this album that I knew the longest did not have those, or Back from the First Side, Deny, which I think it's a missed opportunity. Like I love all the songs on the US version, but I wish that when they had changed the release for like when they put the CD release out, whenever that would have been, that they would have just done like the original UK order and then just had the US tracks as bonus tracks after Garageland.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't do that. You'd think it would be a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would have done it. It would have been fine. It would have been great.
But they ruined it. Well. Yeah, I gotta say, one thing I do like about the songs on this album is they are on the shorter side, but they do a very good job of arranging them so they're short, but they don't feel short.
No, then yeah, like none of them feel like too long or too short. They just feel like we have expressed this idea. Time to move on.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I've listened to this album before, but maybe I listened to the U.S. version because I don't remember some of these songs. But I gotta say, this is a great one. Probably gonna enter my listening rotation, and I definitely recommend it. I can hear how these songs probably influenced a lot of thrash metal bands. I hear kind of that genesis in there. I didn't look up like any thrash bands like talking about them being an influence, but I can hear it.
Yeah, they definitely did. One thing that I like about that, like you said earlier while we were listening to it, that Chuck D of Public Enemy is a big fan of The Clash, and it's like you can really hear that they have similar politics. For one, just the differences in their politics are the differences between being in the UK versus the US. And
I think that's really cool, and Chuck D is such a cool guy. So
yeah, and then the Clash, they really embraced a lot of different styles of music, including a lot of black music. Like you have the reggae song on there. They were the first punk band to cover a reggae song. A lot of other bands did after them, and that's really cool. And then this is going to be a lot later in their career, but for their fourth album, Sandinista, they opened it by being the first rock band to do a rap song that they wrote it. It was a song they wrote. They got some beat people from New York City to come up with the bass and drums for them for that one. But that was they did a rap song before Blondie did Rapture, which I think is pretty cool.
I was watching a YouTube documentary on the origins of nu metal, and they actually talked about that album on there, and they went through a big comprehensive history. They started with, I want to say, oh god, I don't remember the earliest stuff, but there was a lot of, in the punk scene especially, there was a lot of experimenting with rap, which I think became a big thing in hardcore. So I think rappers and punk rockers probably have a lot of similar experiences. I hear Henry Rollins talk about dealing with the LA police, and it's he probably has a lot in common with I don't know, Dr. Dre or something.
And they all come from, well, not all of them, but for the large part, they came from poorer backgrounds, and it was we will play the music that we can play with the equipment we can get. So in the UK, they could get cheap guitars and do that, while in the US it's well, our parents can't afford instruments or lessons, so let's just see how we can loop dance breaks in records and have someone do poetry over it.
Yeah, and it's really cool when you put it like that, because I used to have an anti-rap bias, probably because I grew up in small town Nebraska, but I've been listening to more lately just because I want to expand my musical palette, and it's cool how, I hate that they were in the situation they had to do that, but I do like the story of people taking what they had and making their own music with it and making some cool things, because that documentary I was watching was showing a lot of the early stuff and how they take a rock song and slow it down. And it'd be a riff that I'd recognize normally, but in that song, it sounds almost more like its own thing.
Yeah, and then they would get a hold of the Roland 808 drum machine, which was a failed model at that point. It was discontinued, and you can get them for dirt cheap as opposed to now, and would do a beat underneath all of their samples so that they could kind of structure it all together. It was really cool. It really pioneered the way electronic music and sampling could work.
Yeah. Hey, I actually ordered a soundtrack that will be coming in the mail, so a future episode will be on the Judgment Night soundtrack, which is a bunch of alternative rock and metal bands mixed with a bunch of rap artists from the time, and I think you're going to really like that one. So
yeah, looking forward to it.
So The Clash's first album, go listen to it. I like it a lot. So, I got one more thing. We were going to check back in about Terry Chimes, if he talked about the South Africa thing. So I found a copy of his autobiography online, and I found the chapter where he talks about joining Black Sabbath. And it was kind of a thing where his manager heard about it, and he's like, oh God, would it be awesome to be Black Sabbath's drummer? So he got his manager to get him an audition, and he learned all the songs off he says the live album, so I'm assuming he's talking about Live Evil, which is the one that Dio sang on. And he just he learned all the songs on that, and then he learned the studio versions, because it's well, what if they asked me to play the studio versions? I'm like, oh, that's commitment. Yeah. So he goes and auditions with the band, and I think this is between him recording with Billy Idol, and the auditions obviously go well because he does his homework. And so what he said about South Africa is, I don't know if he regrets it. He basically said, we went to South Africa and it was controversial and it really opened my eyes. And I don't know if he meant like it really opened my eyes about the apartheid part, or if like or if he was talking about like the press attacking him.
Yeah, that's weird.
But I guess his kind of take on it was, according to him, they played a club, and it was a mixed race club, so everybody was allowed in there, and I guess the owner was black, so I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
But I think his take is kind of along the lines of, well, if we don't go there and play for people and expose them to other cultures, we're just punishing the citizens. So I guess by them playing an all race club maybe makes that not so bad. I don't know.
Yeah, playing an all race club makes it better. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about what I thought about that kind of thing, like what you do.
And then close that grim story out with kind of a funny one. Apparently the first show that Tory Crimes did with Black Sabbath, and he said he played the first song. He's like, oh, everything's going well, I'm feeling good. And then suddenly he looks up at Tony and he says he's making the stupidest face and balancing his pink guitar pick on his nose. So you can get coke in South Africa, it sounds like. Yeah. I was originally going to like say, oh, let's listen to the US tracks as a bonus and do like kind of a side 3, but now I'm kind of thinking, what if we just, a later episode, we do the US version so that we can hear like how it sounds in context and, see what works about deleting 4 awesome songs to put on 4 other awesome songs that don't match the same vibe, like just to see how it works. I even saw on the Wikipedia page, it basically called it a glorified compilation at that point.
Yeah, at that point it's some highlights from the first album and a bunch of non-album singles. It's not the same thing. Executives
don't make any sense sometimes.
But yeah, we'll just do that as a different episode later down the line because
that'll be fun.
The whole other album is worth its own conversation because of just how different it is.
Yeah.
And the fact that it came out after they'd done their second album, and so it was like kind of a different band at that point too.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's annoying, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve. I'm Steve.
I'm Dave.
And if you want to check out our music, you can go to my website, killrockmusic.com. That's KILRAVOC. Next time, I haven't decided which one we're going to do. We're either going to do a Southern rock album or we're going to do a new wave of British heavy metal album. So
either of those will be good. My next one, we are going to do an early industrial band doing a foray into kind of synth pop, but in a really dark and menacing way.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, we're going to keep hitting you with interesting classics.
All right. Well, I know everybody wants to go listen to the Diano album because everybody we've played that song for just loves it.
We did like the Diano one. We had to do something that didn't work at some point, as I said on that episode. It's fun. I'm enjoying this project.
I like how Sean was just kind of like, all right, enough of that now, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And then Adam got to the vocals, he's like, yeah, I'm leaving too. All right. Peace. Well, yeehaw, everybody. All right. Well, we just lost all of our audience. So anyway,
I'll come back now. You hear?
Welcome to Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve, and we're back today listening to more vinyl records that we've acquired over the years from before the times when vinyl was expensive and people actually wanted to buy it. Today, we'll be looking at an album that, much like the Diano episode we reviewed a few weeks ago, I bought out of curiosity because I couldn't find the CD of it. So the only option was buying it on vinyl. And fortunately, this one, I don't remember buying it, but it looks like I got it for $3, and that's really cool. So Dave, what do you know about Southern rock?
I know a few of the highlights. I don't know like a lot of the albums per se, or like getting really into it. I know that it tended to have like 3 guitar players playing like really long songs, like, and at least one of them would be doing like slide guitar a lot of the time.
This is called foreshadowing.
Yeah. This isn't scripted at all. This is me just saying what I know about the genre without listening to it very much. I know that a lot of bands that play it don't really like the label because they don't really see what they're doing as any different from any other kind of rock, that they're just kind of playing rock as they see it, and they don't really see it as unique to their own geographic regions.
Molly Hatchet is much like that. They saw themselves as kind of a heavy metal band that's just from the South, not a Southern metal band or something. But
I know that Molly Hatchet has like fucking sick album art that looks like something off of the cover of like a pulpy sword and sorcery novel, which is rad.
Yeah, when I first started seeing Molly Hatchet albums, when I was going through record collections, well, I probably didn't think this because my dad is a Southern rock fan, so I grew up with it, so that's why I'm into it. So I think I knew Molly Hatchet was already Southern rock, but like looking at their album covers, I'm like, that looks like it should be on like a power metal album rather than a heavy Southern rock, Southern heavy metal band. Well, you know, they're a lot of things.
Yeah. And then I know that I know that the keyboard player from the Allman Brothers was married to Cher for a while, and it was funny.
Allman Brothers might be one I bring in later because I have their Live at East Fillmore album.
Nice. And then let's see, anything else I know? I know about the feud between Leonard Skinner and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young are not a Southern rock band, but I tend to side with Neil Young in that because of my own politics and because Neil Young is awesome.
Well, today we're taking a look at the Danny Joe Brown and the Danny Joe Brown Band self-titled album that I got for $3, which features a picture of him that Adam said looks like the guy from Monster Magnet.
He does, or he looks a little bit like Gibby Haynes from the Butthole Surfers. Not a Southern rock band, but a band from the South. They were a Texas band.
On this album is the current Molly Hatchet guitar player, because he ended up joining the band later on. Molly Hatchet now is one of those bands where all the original members are gone, and so I think the current members are either licensing the name or they bought it outright. So I guess they're a cover band, kind of. I mean, there is a connection since he was in the solo band. The Danny Joe Brown Band at this time was Danny Joe Brown, the Molly Hatchet singer, Bobby Ingram on guitar, slide, and vocals. He's their current guitar player, probably their main songwriter and all that. Steve Wheeler on guitar and slide, Kenny McVeigh on guitar. There's your 3 guitars. John Galvin on keyboards and vocals. Buzzy Meekins on bass and vocals. And Jimmy Glenn on drums. And they thank God and their families. And their friends.
Wholesome. Yeah.
Oh, they thank their road crew. That's nice of them.
Oh, that is really nice of them.
Yeah.
I guess, one of the things that we didn't talk about when we did the name of this band is the Talking Heads, is it included the crew in the liner notes, which I thought was cool. So it's cool to see more bands do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it looks like they thank the Outlaws and 38 Special and PV Electronics.
I know the Outlaws and 38 Special, and I know PV Electronics.
I really like the Outlaws. That's another really good Southern rock band. So yeah, I think that gives you an idea of what's going on with this album. But I kind of see this album. It's his solo album. I'm not sure why he left Molly Hatchet. I know he suffered from some health problems, but if you go and form a solo band right afterwards, that kind of, I mean, maybe he was able to tour less on that. I don't know, but he ended up going back after, I think, an album or 2.
Yeah, maybe.
This was the only one he released.
I think if you form your own project with your own name on it, kind of a solo thing, you get more of the royalties, so maybe the idea was to tour less.
Yeah, so this album is pretty much just a Molly Hatchet album, which is fine. If this was a Molly Hatchet album, I would actually probably rate this as my favorite or second favorite.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you like it more than most of the actual Molly Hatchet albums.
Yeah, which is kind of rare for a solo artist, I think, but it sounds like he just went out and got another awesome band and wrote basically the same kind of music. Like one one of the songs on here, I think, was so good in their opinion that they played it in Molly Hatchet when he rejoined. So that's also kind of a rare situation. So my friend Sabrina, once when I showed her the track on here called Edge of Sundown, she described it as deep fat fried blue oyster cult. So hopefully that gives you an idea about what we're about to put on here.
All right,
here we go. And welcome back.
Don't you have any fucking whiskey in your house? I need to have like some bourbon to sip on for this, I think.
I think I actually do.
Oh shit.
So that was side one. You got to say that's a pretty blistering side one.
Yeah, it was one of my criticism of a lot of bands that have 3 guitars is like, do you really need 3 guitars? And no, like this one did. I could tell all of them apart, and I liked it that oftentimes, like a lot of bands that are about, like doing like cool virtuoso stuff with guitars will kind of neglect the rhythm guitar. This did not. I liked the punchy chords. Punchy chords is what I really like in guitar music, and this had that in spades. This was good. I enjoyed it. There wasn't a song on the first side here that I didn't like. There wasn't a song that I thought dragged. I liked how, I don't know, narrative all the songs were. They seemed to be more about telling a story than conveying a particular mood or anything. Just like there were stories kind of with beginning, middle, and ends, or if not that, just like character pieces where it was focusing on a character. Musically, it did not sound like this at all, but like I could kind of see like dark, southern, ne'er-do-well outlaw types. Lyrically, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Nick Cave sometimes, so.
Interesting. I think you put it really well. They utilized everybody in the band. There's 7 people on the back here, and I think the presence of all 7 of them was very well felt.
Yeah. So you said it was singer, 3 guitars, keyboard, bass, and drums.
Yep,
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
For me, I think really one of the standout musicians on this is the keyboard player. He just went crazy on a couple of the tracks, especially the closer, Edge of Sundown.
Yeah, he did like the kind of like the atmospheric spooky stuff at the beginning of the song, and then just like full on fast-paced honky-tonk by the end.
This is really one of those albums. I bought it. I was not expecting much, and I put it on. And I'm like, how what? Because a lot of times, a lot of solo albums. This is ironic that I'm saying this because I'm about to release a album where I did all the instruments, but but a lot of times, solo albums that were clearly put together because either the label just wanted to, and so they just put out what they wanted to, or they're like, oh, I got a solo deal, and they're like, they don't know what to do with it. Because I've heard a lot of artists put out albums where the music is really underwhelming, and it's just not up to the standards of their main band. And I don't know if that's they don't want to compete with their main band, so they don't get the better songs, or maybe it's the label gives you that solo option, but they don't give you as much production money as the main band. But this one very much sounds like a complete band, and they all got together and wrote songs.
Yeah, and like I don't mean this gothic in like the gothic sense, but like in like the literary tradition, like Southern Gothic, there's like the kind of dark atmosphericness, like the spookiness to all of it too, like the
It's a lot like listening to a Western.
Yeah, it's like that.
Like Black Sabbath is like listening to a scary movie. This is like listening to a Western in like a heavy metal kind of way.
Yeah. And then like that last song was like what? It was about a murderer, and it was about how cool it was that he's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the keyboard player, I was looking up to see if he ended up doing anything after this album, because when you look up the Wikipedia page, none of them besides the singer has their own page. But it looks like the keyboard player actually ended up joining Molly Hatchet 2 years later and is still in the band today. So that's pretty cool.
Is Molly Hatchet kind of like one of those Ship of Theseus bands where, it's like where you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, if you replace enough of the original parts, is it still the same thing type of thing? Or
I haven't really listened to much of their current material. I've heard some of it, but yeah, it's absolutely like there's no original members. So it's really like seeing an official tribute act, but they are making new music. So, I guess it's like, it's probably better than the band not existing. So
Yeah.
Maybe it should be a thing where maybe a band passes on its banner to the next generation, because the people that are in the band now, I think, have been in the band as long as the original members at this point. So it's like they've earned their own legacy. So yeah, that's a weird one, but yeah, it's a lot like there's a few bands that have no original members, and this is one of them, and it's an interesting phenomenon.
That's vaguely related, but that reminds me, like one of my favorite bands, like art punk band, Para Ubu. They're down to like the lead singer is the only original member, and they have contingency plans based off of around how to continue the band if he dies, but to not let the public know that he died, just to kind of have a contingency so that like a couple years later they're like, oh yeah, he died. We're gonna keep going. Yeah,
we weekend at Bernie's him.
Yeah. They had a very detailed post about it, and I'm looking at it, it's like, that might actually work, and now I'm not sure if he's alive anymore.
I think I also you said you really liked the Alamo.
Yeah, I liked the interplay of the guitars. I liked the chanting at the end. It was also one of the ones where I noticed just how punchy the rhythm guitar was pretty early on.
That was one where you can definitely see why these guys consider themselves heavy metal bands, because they were doing some like Judas Priest style harmonies on that song.
Yeah.
And it definitely belongs with the heavy metal of the period, because this came out in 81, and it, I think, does share some similarities with, let's say, like, I don't know, Judas Priest in a heaviness sense, because this was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the southern aspect of it was very apparent. It definitely sounded like the southern rock genre. So I don't know how much bands actually oppose that. I don't. These guys specifically, I remember. Well, the Molly Hatchet guys anyway. They said they're influenced by bands like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, which you can definitely hear. But you can also hear the Allman Brothers influence, or even a lot of the country rock bands that were coming up at the time.
Yeah, you hear a good amount of country. You hear a lot of blues in this, like honky tonk.
Yeah, the first Molly Hatchet album was actually literally recorded on Leonard Skinner's gear. I don't know if they snuck him into this studio or what the deal was. Maybe it was cheaper. Maybe they were in the studio already, and it was just cheaper to use their gear really quick. But yeah, there's a connection there too. So
yeah, Sundance was also a really good opener. I liked that.
Yeah, it's got a really good swagger to it.
Yeah, and then Nobody Walks on Me, Go Out Swinging with the Defiant. With the Defiant song, yeah, it was just as a whole a really solid, easy to listen to album. It would be a fun thing to put on if we were like grilling or something like that, too. Like good background music for grilling.
Yeah, it would be a really good song to grill to, and probably go shooting to.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, let's see how side B holds up. All right.
Sabrina was not wrong.
Yeah.
Deep Fat Fried, Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely hear that. I think, if not as strong as the first side, very close to similar. Not like.
Yeah, similar. Like it doesn't really lose momentum.
Edge of Sundown was the side 1 epic. I think you can say Gambler's Dream was the side 2 epic. Both for very different reasons.
Yeah.
Let's just go through the songs real quick. So, A Beggar Man, really liked the lyrics on Beggar Man. I was kind of half expecting like an anti-homeless like thing, but you know that last line, it's like begging you for a buck. Why don't you just give it to him? It just might change his luck. I think it's just a really good way to sum up the homeless problem in general.
Yeah, just like a nice sympathy for the down and out, just like there isn't that much that separates us from the homeless. We're more likely to be homeless than rich. So yeah,
exactly. Run for Your Life was a very awesome song.
Yeah, I liked there are a couple songs like this, but I liked intensifying things with like the tempo to really kind of do a propelling momentum. I was surprised at how short the songs were, with the exception of Edge of Sundown from the first side. Just, like when you have like a band like this with a ton of members and a lot of solos, generally you expect longer songs, but no, this was just a lot of really like cool, fast songs, just with a lot going on.
They did a really good job of not overextending parts just because they could.
Yeah, nothing overstayed its welcome. It all just fit.
I think sometimes I think the biggest criticism I have of modern Iron Maiden is they have so many members and they don't really know when to stop.
Yeah, everyone gets a solo.
Yeah, so a lot of their songs just end up being like 10-minute epics, and they're putting out like double albums, and I don't know. God bless them for doing what they want, because I think Iron Maiden does what they want at this point in their careers. But sometimes it's a little taxing to listen to. Hear My Song, that was a really good one that looks like it was written by the bass player and a guest writer. That was a great song. Gambler's Dream, that had a really cool swagger, and it really kind of gave you this casino atmosphere, because it's about a guy going up to Chicago, and there's like a rich high roller there, and it looks like he gambles away all his money, and the guy gets it. So that's oddly satisfying.
Yeah, it seemed to be going more for like a Prohibition era speakeasy thing than like a Deep South thing, which was a cool change of pace for the setting.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point to bring up about this album. I was looking at the credits here, and it looks like the band participated quite a bit in the writing, and they're all kind of spread out on the song, so I think that probably contributed to the diversity. So they took what they had as far as talent and really, really extended it. The last song, Hit the Road, when I was listening to it, I was like, this could almost be a Motorhead song.
Yeah, and I also like it that a lot of these bands all have songs about traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, every other song on this is like, okay, but you are Southern rock. There's something Southern about this. Yeah, Hit the Road almost felt like, more like, it had some of the, like same kind of twang to it, but it was more like, it felt more like, like Motorhead covering The Train Kept a Rollin' type of thing. Yeah,
and, it reached speed metal territories. Yeah, I think that was a really great way to close the album. It was a really high energy song, and just we got, I think, two sides of just all killer material. I don't think there was any filler on this album.
Yeah, no, it was all like really like breakneck pace too, except for like the little piano intro at the beginning of Edge of Sundown, which I think made it like a good choice for the single too. Just like not the same energy, just kind of like a little variation, but yeah, just like a really cool fast song, like a really good cool fast album where you can just listen to it front to back without it really dragging, without skipping anything, if you are on like a CD or an MP3 rather than just listening through the whole record like we were. But yeah,
much like the album you brought in, we're recording on the same day we did the Clash album, much like that album. I think all bangers on this one.
Yeah, no real notes.
So this is kind of one of your first Southern rock experiences then. So how would you say you entered that world?
Yeah, it was cool. I was expecting the songs to be longer and kind of noodle, longer than they needed, which there's some Skynyrd and Allman Brothers songs that I like, but there's a few of them that I think, just kind of hit the okay, get on with it phase. None of these did that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
even like in Edge of Sundown, when I think there's like two fake endings in there, and it's just like, ha, tricked you, motherfucker. But it's still interesting. Like not a lot of people can like pull that off.
It was a lean yet muscular album. I really liked it. And if this is this, you said this is kind of typical for Molly Hatchet?
Yeah, their early releases especially. Flirtin' with Disaster, I think, comes very close to this album in terms of intensity. Their first one is a little more relaxed, and I think that's because they were using Leonard Skinner's gear. Yeah, the stuff they're using on this album definitely like has probably more in common with, I don't know, Metallica than Allman Brothers, because the guitars on this album got really heavy at certain points.
Yeah, it got really heavy. It wasn't as like laid back as I thought it was going to be. It was just a really cool, intense album.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, I could hear three distinct guitar styles, and I think that's really cool because they all blended together really well on each song, and you don't get a band that gels that way that often. So their run was very short, but I'm glad that this album exists.
Yeah. Oh, another frame of reference I do have for Southern rock is there's a live Lou Reed album, probably his best known live solo album, called Rock and Roll Animal, where he was trying to get his live band to kind of emulate like Allman Brothers style Southern rock. And so
we should listen to that.
We should. And so at some point we should get to that. But it was, to me, that album's always been kind of weird because it was mostly tracks from Velvet Underground albums that he wanted to make into bigger hits because he thought they deserved to be, because they did. And so it's just like him doing like Velvet Underground songs as arena rock, and it's
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's weird. Some of them it works, some of them it doesn't. Like Sweet Drain, it works. White Light, White Heat, I don't think it does. But yeah, we'll get to that at some point. But yeah,
it'll be fun. So yeah, Danny Joe Brown and the Danny Joe Brown Band. I don't know.
For a band named after the lead singer, it was surprisingly collaborative.
Right, really. There's a lot of songwriting credits for everybody, including people that weren't in the band. So this guy really went out there and got probably some of the best musicians you can get. And then a few years later, brought some of them into Molly Hatchet. So,
at what point did the last original member leave Molly Hatchet? What year?
So I want to say the last one left in, I want to say around 95. I probably don't have the exact year, but around that timeline. But later on, and they might have did this for just a sake of getting some legitimacy, but they got their original guitar player, Dave, I think his name is Lubeck. It starts with an H and then it's L. So, yeah.
That's Welsh, yeah, Klub.
Yeah.
Klub,
so,
yeah.
So he was back in the band for a while, and I think actually played on one of the albums that they released with their Theseus lineup. But
cycling people back in is
yeah. But unfortunately, he passed away. A lot of guys in this band had health problems. Danny Joe Brown himself passed away in 2005. I think he had diabetes and all sorts of stuff. Part of the reason he left Molly Hatchet to do this project is because he was having health problems, and probably I'm assuming he was able to do this and tour less than Molly Hatchet was doing. Otherwise, it'd be kind of weird to leave for health reasons and then do the same touring schedule.
Yeah, start a band that sounds similar and tours the same. Yeah.
So yeah, a great album. It was one of those I went in blind because I think I found it in a bin, and wasn't expecting too much, and could possibly be the best Holly Matchett.
Holly Matchett.
Holly Matchett. The best Molly Hatchet album that Molly Hatchet didn't make, but since the guitar player and the keyboard player are in current Molly Hatchet, it's kind of retroactively becomes a Molly Hatchet album, doesn't it?
It's in the Molly Hatchet extended universe.
The MHCU.
Yes.
All right. So what are we doing next time, Dave?
Next time we are doing The Crackdown by Cabaret Voltaire. We're going to do an industrial band accidentally making not accidentally, but kind of intentionally, kind of accidentally making a slightly poppier album when their tape guy leaves, and so they have to rely a little more on synthesizers than weird tape loop experiments.
Well, that sounds fun. I think the next one I'm going to do is the Samson album, Shock Tactics, which is the album that Bruce Dickinson sang on. It's the band that he sang in before Iron Maiden, and this album was the last one he did with them before he left for Iron Maiden, and probably what I considered their best one. And it's interesting because I listened to both that Bruce sang on, Head Tactics and Head Tactics was the name of they mushed them together. But so I listened to Head On, which I don't think was very good. I'll just put it that way. But this one actually ended up being very interesting. They really stepped up on the songwriting, and all the band members sound great on this, but it really gives you a Bruce Dickinson was overqualified for this band vibe. So we got that to look forward to. All right. So that was Side 1, Side B with Steve and Dave. I'm Steve.
I'm Dave. Catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
All right. Hello and welcome to Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve. I'm Dave.
And I'm Steve.
All right.
And that's my dad outside doing lawn care.
If it shows up, it shows up.
Enjoy the beautiful industrial noises of my dad's weed whacker. We're going to sample it and turn it into a 20-minute Lucid Fugue song.
We should. Just like...
We just run out there with the microphones and not explain it to him.
Yeah. Put a brick in front of the mower while your dad isn't looking and record it.
We are saboteurs.
And then just slow it down so it just sounds like death.
All right. And then it'll be our tribute to Sun, the Doom band.
Speaking of tape noises, Steve, what do you know about Cabaret Voltaire?
Nothing. I think you've mentioned them to me before, but that's the extent of it.
They're probably the first industrial band, considering they started in 1973. It's kind of one of those things where it came together over time. They were from Sheffield in the UK, which meant they weren't part of the whole London punk scene, but they were obviously familiar with it. They were more part of, like the Northern England post-punk type thing, like they would have been familiar with bands like, and like playing the same clubs with bands like Joy Division and Throbbing Gristle and stuff like that. They have a lot in common with Throbbing Gristle in that they were kind of inventing the technology they were using as it was coming along because it didn't exist yet.
So we have them to thank for a lot of the music we listen to today now, you'd say.
Oh, yeah, I definitely would say that. They were... They started off as a three-piece with an occasional drummer coming in. They did a lot of tape loops and stuff, so they didn't always need a drummer. But yeah, their original lineup was they had like a guitar player / multi-instrumentalist, a singer-bass player / multi-instrumentalist, and then like a guy who did like keyboards, mainly organ early on, and like weird tape loops and tape effects. By the time the album we're going to do now is called The Crackdown.
Let me take a look at it.
Yeah, take a look at the cover, tell me what you think, and I'll get some more information about the band themselves.
Is a self-portrait picture?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, it looks like a couple of dudes. Wouldn't be too out of place today. That looks like a laptop, but it's probably too early for a laptop, I'd imagine. It says portable, though. I don't know what that is. It must be like a portable studio of some kind.
Yeah, maybe like a tape machine of some kind.
Yeah, and then you look on the back, and it's another cool-looking machine of some type. Almost looks like a cell phone, but yeah, it would be too early for a cell phone. And we got the sleeve. We got more... Oh, it's just the same pictures. Ooh, an artist code.
Oh, yeah. So I was able to have it digitally and on vinyl.
Oh, fancy.
One of the things that I have on my computer and on vinyl, but not on CD.
Well, CDs are out of date now.
Apparently, I still buy them, but yeah. 'Cause they're easier to put on your computer.
True.
And I like to own my music. I think I've talked about this before, but, with the way things can just be taken down off of streaming arbitrarily, it's good to just have your own files.
Yeah, I'm just kind of at the point where I used to buy like anything I wanted to like listen to just to experience, but now I think if I buy anything, it's just because I actually want to own it. So
if you want to listen to it more than once, yeah.
I wouldn't own the entire Kiss discography on CD today. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that's a hint for a future episode that we have coming. That we're gonna make Sean listen to Kiss.
It'll be so funny. Let's not tell him that that's what we're gonna make him do. We'll tell him that it's something that'll piss him off, but won't tell him what.
we might have to bleep out in case he listens to this then. Well, all right. So what do we have to look forward to on this album?
Okay, this was their 6th album. This one is just Richard H. Kirk, the guitar player, and Stephen Malander, the vocalist bass player. Chris Watson, their organist tape guy had left the band at this point. This is their first album without him, so it's a little poppier than their old stuff. There's still like weird tape effects and samples, but they're not as prominent as they used to be. Like some of their earlier album, there is no vocal that isn't processed through tape distortion. This one, there's vocals where you can actually make out the lyrics, other than like the chorus name. But yeah, this was their considered like their kind of poppy sellout album. It is one of the weirdest, most alienating albums I have heard. It just is less weird and alienating than the preceding 5 records.
I was gonna say this is their pop sellout record, but it's still weird and alienating. So
yeah, this is their pop sellout album, and they have a song called "Why Kill Time When You Can Kill Yourself" on it.
Oh God. All right, well. Let's pop this on, and we'll check out some Cabaret Voltaire, the Crackdown, and we'll see you at the end of side 1.
Are we rolling? Yeah. Welcome back to side 1, sorry, yard work noise with Dave and Steve. That was the first side of the Crackdown by Cabaret Voltaire. A little more history of the band before we get into it. They named themselves after a nightclub from Zurich, Switzerland, that during World War I was like a big home for the Dada movement. So it was a bunch of angry, young, left-leaning to left-wing artists who were mad about the cruelty and inhumanity of the world going on around them, and were therefore making the most angry and alienating art they could. The club itself was named after the Enlightenment philosopher / comedian, basically Voltaire, who was pushing back against the relentless optimism of the Enlightenment era by making fun of it. So yeah, the long tradition of angry progressive people being jerks to people who kind of deserve it because society is not good around them. They came out of, England in the 70s and 80s, so didn't start during the Thatcher era, but like all the things that would lead to neoliberalism and austerity and all that were in the tea leaves for people who could read them, like a lot of musicians at that time. So yeah, they were
angry leftist progressive musicians. Sounds like my kind of guys.
Yeah, so that was them. What Steve, what did you think of that first side?
As 2 guys that were born into the Reagan eras, you during the beginning and me towards the end, I could definitely relate to these guys. Yeah, I will say I quite enjoyed this a lot. It's definitely my what I've been looking for in my electronic exploration as far as what I'd like to see more of in adding to my playlist. I really liked the opener.
2424?
Yeah. I'm one that really likes repetition in music, so I really like how they utilize repetition in their songs, particularly that one. And then I also really liked In the Shadows, how they played with the minimalism at the beginning there. But overall, I'd say all of these songs were excellent electronic songs. And, I could hear a lot of different styles of music that were either inspired by or probably either came up at the same time, so they were using some of the same equipment, because I could hear a lot of similarities with not only industrial like you mentioned, but I was hearing a lot of similarities to early hip-hop.
Yeah, they were discovering a lot of the same kind of equipment, like the cheap sequencers that a lot of people in early hip-hop were using because their parents couldn't afford to buy them instruments, like stuff like that, like the tape loops. And
yeah, like I don't know if hip-hop artists were listening to this, but they were definitely using some of the same stuff.
Yeah, I think my favorite track on this first side is In the Shadows. I like the creeping minimalistic thing. That one is the one that sounds the most like their earlier stuff, although I think the departure that they're making is good as a whole. I think side 2 is the stronger side, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, like all 4 of these songs were really good. I liked just how dancey it got though, with talking time and animation.
Yeah, I like electronic dance stuff a lot, and I especially like it when it's combined with creepy music, because I like creepy music.
I like, like the pounding dance beat, but just like with the the alienating tape noises that sound like a train whistle underwater type of thing, It's
like we're having fun, but we're also depressed.
Yeah. Which I guess Northern England, that is the norm, everything's falling apart around us. The weather is always gray. We are the ones who experience the most of the budget cuts because we're not considered the cultural center, and as factory jobs get moved overseas to make them cheaper and exploit the workers even more, everything's just shutting down. Yeah, but let's have fun with it.
Yeah, that's the same area Black Sabbath are from, and they wanted to make dreary music that makes you think you're gonna die and go to hell. So
yeah, this was at some point we'll do one of their earlier records just to show you what that was like too. But yeah, this was if this is a pop album, I don't think pop is bad. There's one of my favorite bands of all time is Sparks, which is just pure pop. But yeah, I think this was for a departure to a more poppy sound. I think what they ended up making was their most accessible record. This is the record that I like to show to people who I want to show the band, because I feel like this is a good jumping on point. It gives you more to latch on to than some of their early stuff, which I still love, but there's only so much you can get into something if you don't have just a little thing to latch on to and then figure out all the subtleties in the background then.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of times with more experimental or more progressive or industrial type bands, their earlier releases tend to be more alienating. But once you take the path that allows you to get into that sort of stuff, then you're able to see the artistic brilliance of some of that stuff when you're able to see it through. I don't know. I kind of see it like a compatibility layer. You hear something that's more catchy, and human brains want to latch on to catchy things. But once you get into that, then your brain's like, well, I need more of this.
Yeah.
So you start looking into the more obscure stuff, and you're like, I get it. It's like the Danny DeVito meme from It's Always Sunny.
Yeah. Oh, that's at some point too. You do all of the weird alienating stuff for a while, and you want to do, might as well write a song with a melody and a beat that someone can dance to, and you still incorporate all the stuff you've done before that, into the song itself, but it gives it it's a great jumping on point then for people then too. It builds on the earlier stuff, but makes it more widely available to a bigger audience, which I think is a good thing as a whole for the most part for most artists.
Yeah, I think it's funny when people get mad at artists for growing.
Yeah.
It's like, what, you don't want to make the same album your entire career like AC/DC?
Yeah.
And I think most artists are like, no.
The interesting thing about that whole Sheffield, Northern England thing, they weren't the big one that people think about when they think of the Northern England post-punk scene was Manchester, because, Joy Division and Factory Records and all that, them being in the same area. But a big thing about the whole Northern England scene is a lot of them the lyrics behind the early punk scene, the London stuff and 77, but they thought it was musically too conservative. It's here are these lyrics about burning things down, but it's just over Chuck Berry riffs. So they wanted to do something that musically reflected the idea behind anarchy in the UK.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right, so that was the first side. Now we're going to move on to the second side. But
what do we have to look forward to on side B here?
We have the last song of the album is the title track, which I like that move. This one leans even more into the more accessible kind of synth pop type stuff, which I think works pretty well, kind of easing their long-term hardcore fans into it.
So this is the poser side.
Yeah, this is the poser side, but the more listenable side. I kind of wonder if people who are coming into this who want to just get synth pop would be better off starting with side 2.
I've actually talked to people that grew up in more of the vinyl era, and I've met people that say they start with the side 2 because they like it better, and that's not really a thing anymore because it's all on one playlist now.
Yeah,
so that's kind of interesting. That's kind of disappeared, but
I like the idea of preparing the albums into 2 kind of discrete sides that need to stand on their own.
Yeah, even when I was doing my solo album, I was purposely thinking about a side 1, side B kind of situation, even though I doubt I'll ever have the money to press it onto vinyl, but if I ever do, it's already ready for that. So,
and something I thought of earlier, to call out a much more famous, much more successful person who does online music commentary. There's one of the all-time greats, Todd in the Shadows, does a series on his YouTube channel called Train Records, where he goes through albums where bands or artists' careers just kind of derail. And one of my favorite episodes of that is the one on Billy Idol's ill-advised turn into industrial and techno in the 90s, called Cyberpunk. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I've listened to it. I that's one we should do on this show.
Honestly, we should.
Yeah, but yeah, I liked it when I listened to it, but it definitely sounded like it was recorded in the 90s digitally. I'll put it that way.
Oh yeah, early 90s Pro Tool on like Windows 95. Yeah, but yeah, Todd in the Shadows record on it is he was talking about cyberpunk as a genre and was pointing out, it was more of a literary thing. There's Neuromancer and Snow Crash and things like that. But then and then there is like a lot of influence from movies like Blade Runner, which was an adaptation of a Philip K. Dick novel, but that it was really the movie that got like the whole cyberpunk aesthetic down. And then there was like manga and anime, like particularly things like Akira and Ghost in the Shell, but that there really wasn't like music that was cyberpunk. I disagree, Todd. I think there was a lot of music that was cyberpunk, and it was from northern England in the 70s. It was stuff like Cabaret Voltaire, Throbbing Gristle, The Normal, Tubeway Army, even though they were a little more poppy than the rest, but just like music that was catching the experiment of punk, but was very kind of like future focused with the electronics and the like early Human League, like their punkier stuff definitely falls under that. So yeah, I am going to start a beef with someone I respect this early in the run.
I wonder what steampunk would sound like as a genre.
A lot of violins and drum machines that are that sound like steam-powered equipment. Yeah, like robotic rotors that are like playing like a robot playing the drums made out of.
So I guess kind of like that metal band made of robots called Compressor Head, except it'd be like remember when Bender was turned into wood in that one Futurama episode? It'd be like that band but turned into wood.
Yeah, and then like all the band members would be wearing goggles and leather aprons for no apparent reason.
I think we need to make that band.
Yeah.
All right, we've yapped enough. Let's move on to side B.
All right, we are back. That was side 2 of The Crackdown by Cabaret Voltaire. Steve, what'd you think?
The first thing I noticed when it was playing is, while it was overall more dancey than the side 1, it was also darker. The first 2 songs had that baritone voice that kind of reminds me of Peter Steele, and it was really dancey, but also kind of depressing. And then it goes into the next track, Why Kill Time When You Can't Kill Yourself, which is the most dancey with a very depressing title, but it wasn't like as depressing as those other 2 songs. I think I remember Haiti is probably my favorite vibe-wise.
That's the one that's the most like their old stuff too. That's like droney tape sounds and like samples and everything's like super distorted, like the way you get by slowing down tape, that type of stuff. Yeah. And then Crackdown was probably my second favorite on the entire record. Crackdown's my favorite. Crackdown is the thing I put on when I'm in kind of like a bad mood because I'm watching like a lot of videos of police beating up protesters. We're recording this at a time when that is happening, by the way. But yeah, it was like a song I would like listen to a lot in 2020 while making sure my phone was in airplane mode when I was out in the streets. And that I turned off biometrics such as fingerprints. Leave it at that. It's a very like dark and paranoid album, but it's not talking about anything that isn't real either. It's not like be paranoid. It's not like an irrational paranoidness. It feels like very grounded.
It's not a Joseph Stalin paranoid.
No, yeah, or a David Icke, or yeah. It's
It's a being a sensitive, creative type in Thatcher's Britain type paranoid.
Maybe more like, I don't know, imposter syndrome type.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a very good album. I really, really enjoy it. The two singles, I think, is interesting that they put them on the second side with just Fascination and Crackdown. The single version of Crackdown is edited for length because it's one of the longer songs on the album.
Yeah.
But it's a very good one. Like, I really like the way the different parts come in Crackdown, and like by the end, just like that really brutal sounding bass guitar, but with that kind of ethereal type synth, the with
Yeah, you mentioned you like the interplay between the synth and the bass, and I agree. It definitely enhanced the overall atmosphere of all of the songs.
Yeah. Oh, they did. Even though they didn't release it as a single, they did make a video for Why Kill Time, When You Can Kill Yourself, which is just like a washed out white background with them, miming playing the instruments. Their live set at this point was, like they would have their bass and their guitar strapped on them, and then they would have a drummer that they hired joining them, but then like they would be, like while they're playing, like would take breaks to hit different sequencers or like play the keys or play a tape loop. It's really interesting. It probably took a lot of rehearsal because like that's the kind of thing, having done that type of thing, where if you miss your cue, the whole song is ruined. So it's really hard to pull off live.
Yeah, we record stuff like this with Lucid Fugue, and in the digital age, it's pretty easy. Even if you mess up, usually Dan or me can just fix it. But I have to imagine, the two guys trying to do this all with tapes had to have been interesting. I'm not sure what kind of equipment they would have had in 1982, but it probably wasn't easy to operate.
Yeah, and it was probably, like these weren't rich guys either. It was probably not like the most top of the line as a result too. It was like cheaper stuff.
It wouldn't be like the Beatles. They didn't exist in this time, but
yeah, it wouldn't be what John Lennon would have had access to if he wanted to make an album like this.
Well, yeah, and you look at the credits here, and you got Richard Kirk playing synthesizers, sequencers, guitar, clarinet, saxophone, shakuhachi.
I think that's a Japanese stringed instrument, or a band, or like a flute or something. I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
I want to play one now. And grand piano, and then we got Stephen Mollander on vocals, bass, trumpet, and grand piano, and then Alan Fish was on drums and percussion.
Okay, shakuhachi, Japanese bamboo flute.
Oh, cool. And then Dave Bell, keyboard and rhythm assistants, rhythm programmers and tapes. Yeah, just all around, lots of good stuff here. It was mastered at Porky's Mastering, so I assume that means it didn't age very well.
A lot of creeping on girls in the shower. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no.
In general, I like albums where bands that were initially like either really heavy or really alienating in some other way for a general widestream audience, like the first one where they do something more accessible. I think Cabaret Voltaire continued to do good stuff after this, but a lot of times with stuff like this, when a band first moves into a more accessible direction, that first album where they do get more accessible is a really good album, and then it's just trying to replicate it where things eventually start to fall apart. It takes a while for things to start falling apart. Eventually they do. Eventually they run out of ideas, but it takes longer than you would think. Like they were a good early industrial band, and they were a good synth pop band that incorporated a lot of what they were doing in their industrial phase. It seems like pretty natural. Part of it is losing the guy whose main job is doing the tape stuff.
What kind of live setup did they have to promote this album? Did they do a tour for it? Did they have to get session musicians, or did they get another lineup together to do the tour and then they recorded another album? What happened there?
For this era, for the live stuff, you can see videos of it on YouTube if you look really hard. It's just the two of them and a drummer. They're like running all the tapes themselves.
Oh wow.
Like a few years later they would like add more people, but like that's the point when people actually do start to consider it being diminishing returns. They were just kind of like running around stage hitting buttons.
I was going to make a Rush comparison earlier, and that's getting more and more apt as we discuss this.
Yeah, they
were a band that entered I'd say a pop era where Neil Peart started experimenting with electronic drums and Geddy with keyboards, and they were definitely taking on a more 80s new wave style sound. And in a similar vein, for longest time I wouldn't check out 80s Rush because I was like, oh, it's not as good as their 70s stuff because it's not rock. And then of course when I listened to what's the one with Subdivisions on it?
Oh, Moving Pictures? No, that's the one
That's
after.
the next one.
Yeah.
Or that's the one before.
Before, yeah.
Signals.
Yeah.
When I listened to Signals for the first time, well, I guess I'll make the Danny DeVito joke. It's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I think Rush's new wave period did end up getting stale, and then they realized it and they moved on to like their 90s sound. But but while it wasn't stale, they did some amazing stuff with it.
Oh, and it's like, go back to Rush some, like before they moved into the new wave period, their kind of blues rock stuff was getting stale. So like their proggy blues rock, it's oftentimes when a band changes sounds, it's for the best.
Again, not everybody wants to be AC/DC.
Yeah.
Even Motorhead, who was more of a genre slime, I'd say, eventually changed their sound.
Yeah.
It took them decades rather than years, but I hate it when people don't think bands should experiment and change their sounds. I agree that sometimes they take it too far, but at other times it's people would instead hate if Metallica was still making thrash albums to this day, everybody would be like, oh, they're still making thrash albums.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, it's like, as someone who has songwriter ADHD, like if you listen to my stuff, like you could argue that that each song is a different like subgenre at least. But yeah, like when my old band Gong Farmer, we weren't intentionally setting out to become a goth band. It's just someone else called us one, and it's like, oh yeah, we kind of are that now, huh? And we just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah,
we'll go with that.
We all like The Cure and Bauhaus, and I paint my nails. Sure, let's just go with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd say overall there wasn't a song on that album I didn't like. I thought they were all bangers and had a very interesting sound that I could shake my head to and shake my foot to, and I would definitely recommend it to anybody that's looking for something in the electronic vein. If you're like if you're a fan of industrial or post-punk or hip-hop or just good music in general, this would definitely be an album you would love.
Oh yeah, it has, like, if you're a fan of like the kind of sounds you get on hip-hop by like early rhythm machines, there's a lot of that. They were, they weren't in the same space because Northern England, it's not like they were Blondie or The Clash who were going directly into New York and hanging out with the hip-hop musicians, because I don't know if they ever toured the US. I'd have to double check that, but like they weren't successful enough to be international superstars and do that kind of thing, so they're just in their dreary little corner of Northern England coming across some of the same sounds on their own, which I think is cool.
I'd be curious to hear what a hip-hop head would have to say about this album, because I'm sure they would really dig it.
Yeah, if I was a rap DJ, this is one of the places I would go to find samples, honestly.
That reminds me, which song did I think reminded me of Ferris Bueller?
that was actually the part in the like in the Crackdown near the end when the bass is just like kind of so loud and distorted that's bo bo bo. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just picturing Ferris Bueller running away from his principal just the entire time, and I turned to Dave, I'm like, this is Ferris Bueller.
Yeah. What is Ferris Bueller but someone trying to escape a crackdown from authority figures? Am I right?
Exactly. This album, or at least that song's about Ferris Bueller, confirmed.
Yes. It is not about when I may or may not have broken some laws.
Well, all right. Well, that was Cabaret Voltaire's album, The Crackdown.
Before we wrap up, too, just to cite some sources potentially, a lot of this is stuff that I got from reading. A lot of the stuff I've read on this band was from the book Totally Wired, Post-Punk Interviews by Simon Reynolds. Been a while since I read it, so I can't point to you which page where things are said. Another book that I've come across a lot in my research is Strange Stars by Jason Heller. It was more focused on 70s stuff. It has some very valuable stuff on their earlier equipment. It's about the influence of science fiction on all genres of 70s music. Those are the two main sources that I can think of that I've drawn stuff on for this, just in case the plagiarism accusations start coming for us. Those are what I remember reading at some point about this stuff.
Stole it.
Yes.
Well, all right. Well, next time I'm bringing in an album by the band Samson, who were in the new wave of British heavy metal movement, notably the first major band that Bruce Dickinson sang for before he joined Iron Maiden. So, Dave, are you looking forward to that one?
I am a big fan of Maiden. and it will be interesting to see what Bruce was like before that.
It is I, Future Steve, here for a minor correction. My next album will actually be from Ace Frehley because we had some scheduling conflicts, so we ended up having our guitarist from the Alliterates, Sean, stay by, and we reviewed Ace Frehley's solo album, which we talked about at the beginning of the episode, so it's coming full circle.
Yeah, and then for my next episode, so 2 episodes from now, I'm going to do a very different kind of dance music, and we are going to talk about the B-52s at that point.
All right. And then we can reference the Chop Suey edit again.
Again.
Well, all right. Well, if anybody wants to check out the music that we make, you can check out my website, killrockmusic.com. That's KILRAVOCK music.com. And you can check out the playlists from the Alliterates and Lucid Fugue. That's our post-punk and experimental band, respectively. And if you like this album, you'll like the stuff that we made there. Do you got anything to plug, Dave?
Well, I guess since I mentioned Gong Farmer again, the band camp for my old band is Gong Farmer, GONGFERMOUR.bandcamp.com. You can kind of see, like, if you go from, like, the first album to the second album, the point where it went from, I don't know, like, quirky Devo type synth punk to more goth stuff. You can see the darkening over time.
Tell the audience what a gong farmer was.
That is early English word for janitor. It literally translates as dung farmer. So it's like the person who would scoop the shit out. So yeah, that was
for the king.
Yeah, for the king. That was kind of a joke and like about that, and that we were highly educated people who were working minimum wage jobs at the time.
Well, all right. Well, that's it. Go listen to Cabaret Voltaire, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, catch you on the flip side.